Folks, welcome back to another fantastical episode of your favorite podcasting show, the BoomBastiCAST, where you come for all your pop culture, film, indie, big budgeted, throwback, futuristic, everything. All that was filmed, all the television and the TV and some comedy, all that great stuff. We got a great episode for everybody today. We've been looking forward to this episode for a long time. This is a gentleman I kind of met via the social webs many years ago, maybe even in the MySpace days, like forever. One good thing to say about social media amongst all the bad things is that you are able to reach out and touch people a lot easier this way. Shoot a message, you know what I mean? You can communicate with somebody. You don't have to take an airplane and cross your fingers the whole time you're going to bump into them at that coffee shop in California. But, reach out and touch a brother, you know what I mean?
Heck yeah.
Get some cool stories, you know what I mean, of the rise. So without, I guess we should probably announce this guest, right? So with that being said, folks, the great Keith Coogan is in the building from such films as Adventures in Babysitting, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter is Dead. He loves babysitting movies. And The Fox and the Hound, Toy Soldiers, The Gentleman. He was in Jay and Silent Bob's reboot recently, which was a lot of fun. He's in Python, you know what I mean, with our boy Robert Englund over there doing a big style. He got to work with the great Joel Schumacher, friends with Corey Haim, the late great, rest in peace. Television shows up the yazoo, you know what I mean? Doing it, you know what I mean? Really doing it big. All the way since a child. I know his grandfather was a real famous child actor. He was the kid from The Kid with Charlie Chaplin. Also for Uncle Fester in the 1960s Addams Family TV show. I think everybody kind of gets down with that in one form or another. It's funny, he'd later go on to work with an Astin too when he did Toy Soldiers. He worked with Sean Astin.
Yeah.
And Sean Astin's father was Gomez Addams. There's a kind of fun tie-in right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he also worked with Will Wheaton, I believe, in Toy Soldiers too. Also.
Yeah, he's also with him and Will Wheaton. I think are both in my favorite. I think Will Wheaton's also in that episode of Tales from the Crypt that I love a lot. I'm pretty sure he is. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. So kick back, throw your feet on the ottoman, not on the table, not on the kitchen table, no boots on the kitchen table. But sit back, enjoy, pour yourself a gold glass of lemonade, and on a Sunday evening, or whatever evening you want to listen to this, we record on the Sunday evening. But the great Keith Coogan.
I need a close-up, Mr. DeMille. All right, that's kind of okay. How's the hair? I feel very Dennis Miller right now. Yeah. Hello. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, amazing. My coffee is brewing, and so I'll just step away, obviously, to get the coffee, because that's important.
Yeah.
And wait, let me get my key light going. Hold on 1 second. I could do things better. Where's a grip when you need them? All right, 1 second, and... Ooh. I got my fancy light. All right. Hi, guys.
I love it.
What is up? Where you at?
We're Boston. Well,
Yeah.
I'm south of Boston. He's a little north of Boston.
Coffee is almost ready. Well, hi, everybody, and thank you for watching. Sorry, I'm being rude. I need my coffee.
No worries.
Oh,
No,
yes.
absolutely.
Totally
Okay.
understand.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Nice. So, yeah, man, nice collection behind you there.
Me too.
I like your screen solution to the backdrop. That's good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Hey.
Alex keeps it very plain, and I keep it filled. So we mess with people's eyes. The right eye sees the clutterness, and the left eye sees the clean
The truth is,
white,
you just
pure
don't
white.
want to see what's behind this curtain.
That's
It's
true.
I'm too lazy to fix all my mess. Yeah.
There's a bunch of bodies hanging up like Texas Chainsaw Massacre behind Huck.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Matt, come on.
I'll delete it. I'll take it out. Don't worry. You're safe.
There we go. Oh yeah, I got to get my my sign. Hold on, my sign is all out of whack. I gotta show my dang Pac-Man sign. All right, cool. My wife is Miss Pac-Man nut. And as we built our little home arcade, I got the cabinet,
Yeah.
barrelcade, and then 3 of these. These were Home Shopping Network QVC. They're countertop arcade 1-ups.
Yeah.
So they're not like the ones in Target or whatever. They're and they won't mount on those bases. They just go right on a count, but they're really solid. I recommend them because they're $1.99 Earl Shive.
I love the arcade. When I seen them come back, I was so excited. You know what I mean? They just give you a good. They give you a good feel when you see them. You're like, oh,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Is that records I see over the right shoulder?
Oh yeah, probably. Well, no, La La Land. That's just sheet music for records or somewhere else. Oh yeah, they're over by the front door. We just have a few. We actually got a cute little suitcase, pink, record player. Haven't played one record on it. Probably got it like 3-4 years ago. But I like to collect that 80s sound, of
course,
on vinyl. Because Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, The Cure, they just sound so great on vinyl.
Yeah.
Can't tell you.
Oh yeah.
Everything does, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think Keith's got you beat, Matt, with with the cool backdrop, man. I think he might be upstaging you on that respect.
I love that gigantic cassette.
Well, this is not the man cave. This is my wife's arcade. Yeah, the arcade thing. Like I've tried playing on those little joysticks.
Yeah.
And Sega flashback discs, which are pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. But nothing beats like these 1-ups just feel like it, takes you right back. And like there's a purists that are like, you gotta get a cabinet and a real thing, and the arcade 1-ups are crap, and you know why they're crap, and I'll give you 17 ways. And I go, well, they're fun, so go to hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to work with a guy that refurbished them, and I was always trying to get them. Was it Wild and Crazy? What's the game where you drive the car and shoot the gun at the same time? I think it's called Wild and Crazy or something like that. I was trying to get him to get me one of those. Yeah, back in the day.
I want Operation Wolf so bad.
Yeah.
Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Classic.
Defender and Robotron. You got to have some of those.
Of course. I see you got one of the bar table arcades off to right behind you. I love those. Like, I remember always going to the bar with the old man, and you'd have that. That'd be like your table would be the Miss Pac-Man or something like that. You know what I mean? I love those tables. Those are really the best.
Oh yeah, and the little barrel arcade, the 2-player sit down. Those were always in like Red Onion and Black Angus and those skeevy places my parents went to.
Yeah.
I mean, and Black Angus is still around. Love you to death.
Yeah. I enjoy Black Angus roast beef on my sandwiches.
We had a little restaurant in our neighborhood, 1 gas station, 1 supermarket, 1 restaurant, at little town of 15,000 people, Malibu, but the poor part of Malibu. And at Trancas Restaurant, they had a bar attached, and it had room for 3 stand-ups and like 2 sit-downs in the bar proper. And the stand-ups were kind of up a little bit near the lobby where you come in to check in, for your tables or whatever. We're just behind a wall, so it didn't bother people. And they started with Donkey Kong, Defender, and Tron was there. They had that gnarly Tron machine there.
Yeah. Have you seen that documentary? Is it King of Kong? Is that what it is? Oh, dude.
Yes.
With the villain, I did the villain in that documentary. I forget his name right now. Oh, Billy Mitchell or something like that. And he's like the greatest villain of all time. He takes himself so serious. It's the greatest.
I'm fascinated with speed runs, but I like to do speed runs on ridiculous games like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Try a speed run on Cyberpunk.
I
got my rocking my Rick and Morty Cyberpunk.
Morty, yeah.
My wife
Nice.
happily bought for me. I like that shirt. Next day, ding dong.
That is a cool shirt. So you always a video game kids from the beginning, from when it first popped on the scene?
Kind of obsessed.
Yeah.
I got an Atari 2600, and probably in 78, maybe 79. Probably for my birthday of 79. so in January, and I think we got it from this like ridiculous appliance dealer downtown with those like crazy Eddie signs, and it was cheap. It was $99, and I remember that was a really big deal for my parents because our rent was like $400. So $99, and then these games, my mom's like, these games are $30 a piece. So I had done the Waltons, and I'd done like 18 episodes of the Waltons, and my mom was like, yeah, that was pretty good money, so you can have an Atari. And I had Skydiver and Tank or Battle, Court Pong, and all the, you know, the original one came with the rotating one and everything. Great. And then I would rent Atari 2600 games from one of the video stores. They had a whole rack of them. Yeah. And remember, noticeably, Activision games were remarkably better programmed, way more fun. What was the dentist one with the teeth, and you were a tube of toothpaste and you could fight Plaque Attack? Yeah. Fun game. You just noticed those weird things, and you didn't know the behind the scenes of creators fighting with each other, and like, you know, ownership of companies and people branching off and starting their own thing. But Gary Kitchen was a genius. Yeah, great soundtrack. That was the first time you started to know video game designers' names, and you had the crash because I got ET for Christmas that year, and it really truly was a horrible game. And you try to like it, and you go, you know, this is just awful. And you pop in River Raid again. And so I can understand they made more cartridges than existed in the console. So we pick up a few years later with Nintendo, and we get the Super System with the robot.
Yeah.
Like fun. And it has, you know, Duck Hunt, and it's great. It's that thing carried for a while. And then I found Sega, and I became a Sega boy for until PlayStation. I've Sega, Saturn, Dreamcast, 32X, CD-ROM. I've owned 90% of the titles on every Sega system. And I even had the 8-bit with the 3D glasses. Yeah. For Harrier, Super Harrier, and dude, just loved it. Spent far too much. I handed all my video games to my younger brother. He's about 12 years younger than me at one point, and it was a box of 3 systems, and it totaled up to $6,000 if you counted like $40-50 a game, plus the systems, plus I had the steering wheel for Daytona. It was about $6,000 worth of video games. Original that I gave my little brother. He kept the Atari and all of those, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I believe it, man. There's games that go for like ridiculous money out there. You know, there's a huge market for that stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they just said an unboxed copy of Zelda went for $180,000 or something like that.
Jeez.
I wonder if it's selling. That makes me sad if that's selling. That's insanity. They're gonna put it on display though. I think they put it in a case. They're not gonna open that up and play it.
Open it up and play that bitch. What's our PG rating?
We're rated X over here. No worries.
Yeah,
Good.
X
I already
rated.
stumbled across a line. What's that line?
I feel bad.
A bitch is a female dog.
That's true. Cater to everybody. The feline.
I go to the Bart Simpson defense. No, I can say that bitch is a dog.
It's a lot of Sega people, they go into PlayStation. It's funny that crossover when you talk to people.
Yes.
Like they don't want to go to Nintendo again.
I want to say it's controller based because I tried Xbox and it never worked out. I just love the 3-button, or Sega was that 3-button and then it became 6-button. Yeah. But when they went to the dual joystick for Sega for like PlayStation 2 and 3, they started to go crazy with the joystick and triggers and all that stuff. Perfect design for control. And because some of the games you play, you have to do these machinations. I gotta hold this while I'm taking this, and it becomes physical memory. And I think Red Dead Redemption 2 did it the best, where it feels like you're drawing a gun and putting it away and drawing a bow. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a weird like physical divide within gamers where like there's the people that like that more technical controller, and then there's people that like the simple Nintendo style. You know what I mean?
There was a Sega game, AHX Attack Helicopter, and it had 2 modes. It had easy mode where you can kind of just go up in a helicopter and it automatically hovers and you just move around. And then it had expert mode, which I couldn't stay aloft for more than 10 seconds. You had to really work every single control. At flight simulators, remember when those became huge? I was also into computers, introduced with the Trash 80, the TRS 80 in public schools, and then got an Apple IIc in '86. And our school had started to get the Apple IIes, tons of them, the big brown box. And so I took computer science in school first semester. Second semester, I was the TA because I was the one that knew how to load all the games and set them all up. And totally raped. We had a Taipei contest. You guys remember Taipan or Taipei? It's where you,
Taipan, yeah.
you know, go from port to port and you have cannons and you pirates and you've got silk and opium. You're dealing silk, opium, gunpowder, all that stuff. And nobody in the class knew that while you're in battle, if you held down the space bar, it went boop, 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 and the battle was over instantly. Everyone else is cycling a 30 seconds of going through battle. So I didn't have any other strategy but regular random port. Actually, I love to sequentially hit every port and go back and get thrown off by typhoons. And they're at a few 100,000. I'm sitting on like 1.8 million by the end of the period. They just had no idea, just because I knew how to kind of make the game move faster.
Yeah. What a fun time when video games were allowed at school. I remember the Oregon Trail game. We played Prince of Persia. Yeah, we played Prince of Persia in our school, which was weird.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We had also, was it Quetzalcoatl or Montezuma? It was an Apple II game.
Yeah.
It had a little color. It had like 16-bit color, or no, 8-bit color.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an Indiana Jones ripoff.
Yeah. It's weird that the school kind of just allowed that to come in, so to speak. You know, it was like they seen the new technology coming. I assume they probably knew they were eventually going to use it for educational purposes, so they wanted to kind of introduce it in a fun way, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it jumped right into basic programming and what is it called? Logon or Logo?
Yeah.
The one with the turtle.
Yeah.
You can do graphics with it, but you're basically taking a head of a turtle and telling it where to draw and what to draw. Yeah. But it was easy to program.
Yeah.
And I immediately was programming at home, and like I'd make the whole dialogue from war games between Joshua and anybody at the computer. And if you didn't respond right, it would kick you out. And if you did, it would go forward. And yeah, I was a big nerd.
Hey, it's all good. Look, just think about how far computers have come. I remember when I was a kid, like you'd open up the computer and you have to put a hard disk into it to punch in a code just to like open it, just to like start the computer. Remember those days? Yeah, that was too much. Now it's just now you just think it and your computer turns on.
To play games on the TRS 80, there was a tape cassette drive.
Yeah.
And you put the tape cassette and you type load mem or whatever, and you hit play. And sure enough, this thing would load in there and you could run it. Amazing. I never knew how to save. That was the problem. It was very hard to save and know where that file was going and how to pull it back later in another game. So you take the pain to load something on a TRS 80 and you're like, that's the game and that's what we're sticking to. Don't turn off the computer.
Yeah. I got a friend of mine right now that's like he's going back and getting all these older systems, and he's big into the Commodore right now, and he's got like the little floppy disk that you put it in, and like you can get halfway into the game, you got to switch out the floppy disk, and if the next floppy disk doesn't work, you're just like screwed. It's like technology, you know.
I had friends that were real big sports people. I'm not that big sports. I'm a Dodger fan, Laker fan, Kings fan. I'm an LA, you know. Yeah,
I'm a Boston guy. That's why I wear the hat.
So we had NHL and all of the, hockey games, but then we had a baseball one that had a full season. But you couldn't turn off your game. But you could have multiple players pick teams, and when the game came up, they could play it. Or you could just have the computer play it, whatever, but it was a full season. But you couldn't turn off the Sega Genesis. So I had moved on to the Saturn, and I had the Saturn set up on a big TV, and I had a smaller TV on the floor on like a milk crate with just the Genesis underneath it. For a few months, one summer, we rocked a season of baseball. And whenever someone came over, we're like, "You're Cincinnati, you're up. All right, come on, sit down." That was a weird way to get around that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Adequate. Being a part of some really gigantic movies and TV shows during the time of all the video game come up, did you ever find yourself in a cool situation where you got it maybe an advanced copy of a system or a game? You know, I didn't know if like,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I want to say the one that like directly was Zaxxon and a commercial for a cereal called Halvesies, because it was half rice grain and half wheat grain. Remember Halvesies?
Yeah.
And there was a commercial I did, and it was a contest, and if you won the contest, you got a full-size video game, and the game was Zaxxon, and I was familiar with it. They also had Super Zaxxon, and I got to play it. But what was funny on the commercial, they had each kid, they needed somebody to shoot the insert of the game. They go, we need someone to play this so that we can, and like a cool part. And I'm like, I know how to play it. And like every kid said we could play it. So they gave us auditions to play the video game. And I'm just sitting on a quarter for like 20 minutes. And they're like, okay, Keith's the one that's going to do it. So in the commercial, when they cut to the game, that's really me playing. But no, I got a few toy prototypes and stuff. But video games was not, yeah, I never, and I never did a voice. Like Will Wheaton has done Grand Theft Auto and other games. I had a friend, Phil Tanzini, who's in all the like Modern Warfare and Snake, Metal Gear Solid games and stuff like that. I totally want to get into voices. That would be awesome.
That would be cool. I figure in the time of the product placement and stuff right there, I figured the video game companies would almost shower the production and systems, so they'd put them in the movie as well as bring them home, and their kids would love them and talk about them and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of movie giveaways for like promotional materials. I have a little coffin from Evil Dead 2 that's got like a fake finger in it, where you can stick your finger in it. It looks like a bloody finger when you open the coffin. But this is stuff from like 87, 88, 89. And admittedly, there were some cool movies there, but the later 80s, it tended to get kind of, for me, it was hit or miss. It was either something really, really subversive and not really a main studio release, but most of the main studio releases had gone through this kind of a, what did somebody call it? Directed like smooth mixed house paint. Like, like blended well. It's very like, hits the four quadrants, and the writing is, you know, audience can predict every turn. But not that that's bad. It's the filmmaking had understood its language by the late 80s.
Yeah. No, I feel that.
Yeah.
You just brought up a commercial for the video game. I know that, I believe, did I read the first thing that you ever did acting wise was a commercial for Mickey D's?
Yeah, for Mickey D's. First thing I ever did was non-union. I was a stand-in on a McDonald's commercial. And so they're lighting me, and I get up to the counter with my tray, and they like put a, you know, or whatever, and they put a Big Mac in front of me, and I'm like, ooh, a Big Mac. And the director goes, oh no, him, we'll use this kid instead. And so the mother of the other kid was like, nah, you hired my kid, and you got it. And technically they're right. Yeah. So the director said, you know, I'll use you for something else. And meanwhile, my mom is kind of upset that we never got paid for it. Mm-hmm. So was it union? They're like, you weren't here. You're not on the books. Like, what pay? So my mom asked around town and got hooked up with an agent that I read for. Pretty much immediate. I think I was an extra in a Coast soap commercial, and it was a school bus driver that all the kids are screaming, but then they go in the shower with Coast soap, and they're just like heaven. And I think my left shoulder was in that, in like the back of the school bus. So that was my first time on camera. I'm 5. I'm maybe, you know. So I turned 6. I get my Screen Actors Guild card. And Denny Harris, the director of all of those McDonald's commercials, called me back. And I did a series of 4 commercials for McDonald's. And I did every single thing except for Levi's and Coca-Cola. I mean, I did Ford and Texaco and Toyota and Rice Krispies, Sugar Smacks, Corn Pops, tons of Mattel toys, Sucker Man. Firefox, which were these pretty big remote controlled cars. I did commercials for He-Man. I did Manny Faces commercial. Sometimes we would sneak they're like, the toy isn't in production yet, but this is the prototype. So you're playing with the prototype in the commercial, and they're like, we don't need it after the commercial. Go ahead. So I had all these half-built, hot glue gun versions of these toys.
Nice.
So yeah, commercials is a great way to get on a set and get familiar with the terminology and what a mark is and your eye line and a light and like kind of how to be on a set. And then I got a Chips episode.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be 1 or 2 lines, but I hammed it up, and the directors kept going, more, improvise, more, and I just steal it's shameless scene stealing, but I didn't know at the
Great,
time.
though, yeah. You gotta
So
do
then
what
I
you
wound up
gotta
doing
do.
4 episodes of Chips over the years, different characters, until we did the Brat Patrol ones in the last season. And I was a little glasses wearing nerd in the Brat Patrol, wearing a little Chips outfit. Those were fun. And a lot of 80s TV and stuff after the commercials.
Yeah, any ones that you like more? You did a whole bunch of TV, which I love. We love TV over here, of course. Any ones that you want to dive into more than any others that you get real good memories from? Or
Oh wow, I mean, great memories from all of them. There are some also huge misfires, or ones that were never really critically acclaimed shows, and there's no shame. At that point in the 70s and 80s, you had a lot of old movie whores coming back to TV for a paycheck, and getting it. And my grandfather had been through his movie career and wound up with a comeback on television with the Addams Family as Uncle Fester. So there's no shame in doing TV to build your career up to get to do movies. So between 76 and 86, I did 100 commercials and 50 TV shows. And the standouts were Mork and Mindy, the last episode of Mork and Mindy with Jonathan Winters and Robin Williams. Laverne and Shirley. Cool. Heavy on the Shirley time. She played dual characters. She played a woman that looked like her new date's ex-girlfriend. So it's Cindy Williams in a blonde wig. And because they were kind of dueling at the time, their agents were counting lines in the episode. And Cindy Williams was playing double parts. They had to boost up Laverne's part in that episode. So I wound up getting babysat by Laverne, kidnapped by Lenny and Squiggy. And it's an amazing episode. And everybody I got to see, Carmine, everybody. And then Knight Rider was particularly fun for me because I shot it before any Knight Rider had been on the air. I had seen Knight Rider in special effects magazines or movie, film, more genre, more like Fangoria and stuff started talking about this sci-fi show. And I got it, and it was the 3rd episode. It was Good Day at White Rock. And it was shot on the Universal back lot in the Clock Tower Square. David Hasselhoff was awesome. He was a big kid. He was having so much fun doing the show. And him and I just played. We would play. We'd sit in the car, and he'd be pushing buttons. He's like, turbo, and he talked really fast. I'm on turbo. Then he'd hit Norm, and he goes, Norm, I am now Norm. I am Norm. He was absolutely the greatest guy to work with. And I did like the cool ones like Love Boat and Fantasy Island. And as a kid, you kind of like, I'm going to go to Fantasy Island, or I'm going to go on the Love Boat. No, you're going to go to Stage 20 on the 20th Century Fox lot. And, but you're used to that. A lot of time in the Waltons, I did a Little House on the Prairie, which I get a lot of notice for. I was a blind child that wound up singing towards the end of the episode, and it's not even my voice. So I did. I did a lot of pilots for TV series, weird ones like Norma Ray, the television series with Cassie Yates. I did a series called Super Train, which almost bankrupted NBC. That was one of the largest budget series made at the time. They spent, it was a $10 million budget for their pilot, and they spent $5 million on the model train and the stages and the sets. It was like the big bus, but on a nuclear train that could go from LA to Chicago in 32 hours. I'm like, that's not that fast. I could make it from LA to New Orleans in 36 hours. So how many stops is this Super Train making?
They should have thrown a cape on the train. The train needed a cape, Super Train, and a mask.
We just lost William Smith, who was a classic Western actor.
Yes, rest in peace.
And I think it was the pilot episode for Tales of the Apple Dumpling Gang, the Gun-Shy series. And he had broken ribs while we were shooting it. He got thrown from a horse or involved in a stunt fight or something. And he had taped up ribs, but he didn't tell anybody. And there's a part where this guy, this mean, evil, and he's the sweetest guy in the world, but he's the big bad guy. He kidnaps the two kids and he picks me, and I think it was Bridget Anderson at the time, up. Or maybe Sarah Gilbert. It was Sarah Gilbert. He picks us up under his arms like this and is carrying us while we're struggling and kicking through like kicking in doorways. At the end of one take, and we're in this like kind of upstairs set on the old Disney lot. They used to have a Western, really cool Western street. And he puts us down and they cut and he goes, oh, and I'm like, what's up, Mr. Smith? And he goes, oh yeah, I got a couple of cracked ribs here. And I'm like, what? How are they letting you do this? How are they? He goes, no, don't tell anybody, kid. So, in the 70s, there were movies like Hooper and The Stuntman. And there were like that men's men, Smokey and the Bandit, Magnum PI, mustache. So notice I got my 80s stash going.
I love it. Yeah. That's when men were men. It was a thing where they were it was more of probably a worry of losing work. You know what I mean? Where they were like, well, we don't want to say we're hurt because they might get somebody else type deal,
Can't show vulnerability.
Exactly. Yeah, it's trickiness. Yeah, rest in peace. I heard he just passed. Great actor.
Yeah. And he's getting a lot of love, and like almost more love than I see huge stars get. Huge stars get about 4 hours. Next day, nothing. You just see nothing about them, and they'll get like 24 hours of the news cycle and it's over. And I see him continuing to get a lot of love, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good. There's like a remembering process that comes into play, which is nice because there'll be a group of people that have never even heard of him that'll be able to be turned on to his films and his work. You know what I mean?
Well, I just had a thought. Like we've got Chris Pratt, and he's got like a few movie franchises, Jurassic Park. He's got Guardians of the Galaxy. He's got the Tomorrow War, which they're going to make a sequel. But these actors we're talking about, like William Smith, you look at his credits and you go, oh my God, like he was in the biggest ones of the day. He was, more of a baddie character actor kind of guy.
Yeah.
But like in context, they had some strong actors that kind of brought a lot of baggage with them. They were known for certain parts and roles in Westerns. You cast them in something, the moment they step on screen, the whole audience is like, oh, I know what that guy's all about.
Yeah. He's definitely one of them for sure. Yeah, it's cool that, it's definitely cool. Definitely cool. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to be an overall fan of cinema in general, you got to celebrate every generation of it from the get-go. And, you're when you do these films, they're there forever. They age, I guess, but they don't. You know what I mean? Films don't. It's weird. So he should be just like he made the movie yesterday.
I love that we've still got the same kind of thing. Video games, great movies, TV. A little change with the coronavirus and the theaters shutting down.
Yeah.
And everyone adjusting to like. Every time you make that decision whether to pay for a Disney Premier Access movie, you like start going through the numbers. You're like, really? If it's you and your wife, it's really only $15 a ticket. That's what it would be in the theater. And then it's cheaper to make the popcorn and the snacks at home. And you can pause it and go to the bathroom and rewind. And you got a huge TV now. So it's like, what's the, well, I mean, it's ignoring kind of this phenomenon that we had for 100 years. Mm-hmm. From the early 1900s till a year ago, going to the movie was just this very specific special thing. Right. There's people that go to movies alone, and I do. So there's nothing wrong with that. I love it.
Yeah.
So that was a very radical change. And I think it's as radical as film itself, silent movie, talkies, color, widescreen, each like technical thing, digital. That changed a lot, but now we're changing really in distribution how we consume it. Binge watching.
Right.
5-6 years ago, you never heard the term binge watching.
Right. Well, even you take TVs even bigger than movies now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like Westworld was the first one that I really went, oh, this is written and shot feature quality, most episodes.
Yeah.
And after a while, you get strung along J.J. Abrams style and you kind of check out. I did. I checked out of Westworld after a while. But I also was like 7 or 8 when the original Westworld and Future World came out.
Yeah.
And then they were playing on cable or on TV when I was 10 or 11 years old. They play like on Saturday mornings. For
Yeah.
kids, they go, here's Roman World for kids. And I'm like,
Yikes.
this is a great film.
Yeah.
And then a parent will walk by and go, hey, is that Yul Brynner? And you're like, yeah. He's like the worst robot. They're like, oh no, he's in Magnificent Seven and King and I. And we're like, wait, I don't know what you're talking about. He's a really evil robot.
Yeah.
So Yul Brynner means something different to me than it did my grandparents and parents' generation.
So where do you think the state of cinema is going, like theater wise? I feel like, you know, we're not going to lose theaters. We'll have a lot of art house theaters. You can go see throwback movies and independent cinema. And they'll always have kind of a, you know, it did take a hit with that digital thing, especially with COVID.
Yeah, you got to see Julia Marchese's Out of Print. She's a great film on each theater has to convert to digital, and it's $100,000, $150,000 to get the projector. Bulbs are pretty expensive, and then getting the rights to archived films. Sometimes there isn't a digital print available. Blah 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 blah. It's tightening the kind of restrictions. Like an actual print of film floating around somewhere is great. And there's one I've been mentioned the babysitting they've been using for, you know, in-person screenings, a 35mm print. And we know this print. I know where the cigarette burns are and all that stuff. And the noise pops. And I'm like, and it's a beautiful, no scratches. It's awesome. There's another print that's just destroyed. It's got discoloration on one of the reels, really bad scratches. And so it looks like they trimmed one of the reel changes. So it just really jumps bad.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of warmth for that print.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and you look at when you see movies released in the 80s, you'll have a range of between 800 to 1,000 to maybe 1,200 theaters for a huge release. Today, we're still talking 2,000, 3,000 theaters. Yeah. And also the economics have changed with the multiplexes, because I think they started doing this at Universal City Walk for the Cineplex Odeon there first. They'd have like 13 theaters, and they'd have Jurassic Park out, and it would sell out in 2-3 theaters, and they wouldn't have a lot of ticket sales for other films. And they could turn a key, get another digital rights key, open another theater, and go, we just added a showtime. Yeah. And before, you would have to have a physical print duplication of the cost of making a 35mm print and distributing that to 1,200 theaters doesn't exist anymore. There's a cost to make a digital capture, you know, digital cinema package. But even that, they're like, don't you have a QuickTime? It's just easier if we just play it off a QuickTime file.
Yeah. I think the whole digital age where we're going is playing a part in Quentin Tarantino's decision to only make one more film. I think that's really a thing, though. I think that plays a big part in it.
Well, it's funny. I've looked at what he said on that, and kind of the way that you phrased it just now. After you work on movies, and especially if you do a lot of like B-movie, grindhouse, exploitation. I did a lot of like, snake movie, a surf movie, a ski movie, a karate movie, and they're all for low budget, you know, film companies in LA.
They're fun, yeah.
They just, everybody inevitably winds up working for them. But you're working with your friend, like PM Entertainment had done, UFO had done, which is Tim Olant's company, had done Python.
Yes. With
Billy Zabka, Will Wheaton. I mean, it's old home week.
Yeah.
Wait, what was the question? Where were we?
Oh, it was just a side question of Tarantino, the digital age.
Oh, yeah.
Helping take him down.
When you're on a set, even the grips, even the cameraman, you're applying the same techniques, the same aesthetic that, you know, everybody really has been. You're doing the same job. Just on different projects over and over. And at one point, you start hearing this quote, and the newer people they don't understand it. But you go, you know, we're just working on it's all one movie. It's all one movie. The art of making movies, once it is captured on celluloid or digital and then turned into a film, a narrative, it joins this kind of universe of film. So they all kind of have a relationship to each other. And you see how certain character actors play the same kind of character. They'll come back, you know, in other projects, like I just mentioned with William Smith, where it's like, oh, I recognize him as an Agent Coulson type. Yeah. He's pretty much always going to play that kind of type, and it's shorthand for an audience. That it is all one movie, because my essence, you know, I'm acting, but I'm also, my acting is using as much of me as I can, or finding as much as the character, and then kind of messing with the other actors. I just want to make it really personal, and like, because the audience feels that. They call it, oh, they have chemistry or charisma. And it's like, no, I'm just getting under the skin and getting that flash of like, you're an asshole in their eye. I'm like, that works. I love messing with other actors on set. And it does become like you're just working on, you've always just been working on the same project for 40 years. Mm-hmm. So when I hear Tarantino say he's going to make one more movie, how many parts?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
How many parts? One more movie. One more movie. Does that, but that doesn't, I don't know. Because of that phrase that I've heard on the set, it's all just one movie.
Yeah.
I feel like there could be an out for him there.
Yeah.
He goes, actually, really, I don't know. The Vega brothers, this is really an expansion. It's an added act. It's Kill Bill 1.5. So it doesn't count as my, you know, Fellini 9.5. Yeah, so he's going to get away with some crap like that.
I could see him
counting 4 bellhops. Is he counting Grindhouse? I guess he does count Grindhouse, right?
Yeah, with Death Proof. Yeah. Death Proof and count Death Proof, yeah.
See, that's a tough call, because for me, Grindhouse was one movie. No,
I agree.
I went and saw it in LA, and it was one movie. It was one of the greatest, like 3.5, 4 hours I've ever had in a theater.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the Vista, at the New Bev when I was, you know, in the 80s and stuff, when it was the Tovalds, and they had the same clips of film. You know how Tarantino has those interstitials and let's go to the lobby and like the rated R with the type, those. I remember seeing those exact same clips of the actual clips of film in theaters here in LA that Tarantino has as a production and used in the work print for Grindhouse and his other films.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of, because he has a lot of cool obscure and expensive movie memorabilia.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
he's like, oh, I have this. I've got, you know, this is the cape from that. Here's Robert Shaw's body. He's like got actual things that are cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the sad thing about Tarantino leaving, is like he makes these great films, but you got to look at the aspect of the film fan that he is and the cool things he adds to the films, like Grind.
Who directed Poltergeist?
Tobe Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
They like to say Steven Spielberg,
right?
But
now, who Batteries Not Included? That's a George Lucas. Or is it Lucas or Spielberg? That's Spielberg.
They produced it, I believe. Yeah, I think Spielberg produced it. Yeah.
But George Lucas didn't direct it.
No, I don't think so.
But it's still a George Lucas kind of fit. Like, you know what I mean? You start to associate. Like Willow could be Ron Howard, but it's in my mind, it's more Luke. You know what I mean? There's like certain things.
Exactly. I know exactly.
So when he says he's not going to direct another movie, doesn't mean he's not going to executive produce or write one or frickin' do a extended limited run TV show.
Yeah.
We're going to get more Tarantino. And he saw the industry changing, that features are going away and it's about long form television. So that guy's got a script that he thought was unpublishable. He thought was unmakeable. And he goes, oh, it's a 19-hour epic that takes place in the Adirondacks. It's about moonshiners. And I go, oh, I'm on board. I've already paid for the first time, so let me subscribe now. So he is, and he'll probably metaverse it like Stephen King and Derry and, you know, what is that new one called?
Castle Rock.
Thank you.
Castle,
to think that Tarantino couldn't pull off a TV version interconnecting every single one of his films, and that he wouldn't do that, is absurd.
That's true. TV is a good medium for him. That's a good platform for him, because like you said, he could do a 19-hour miniseries for sure.
How's he gonna do Vanetta Green's daughter's story?
Yeah.
On a frickin' Netflix is how he's gonna do it. That's how we get to see all the other backstories intertwined. Daryl Hannah's still breathing.
Yep.
So we get some more time with her character.
That's true. I mean, he could. He had his thing where he's like, he wanted to leave before 60, and then he had his thing where he said he wanted to leave at 10 films. So it's kind of like, it's a weird vibe, you know what I mean? Because he could ride it out for the next 20 years of just doing whatever. I know he wants to do theater as well and write history books on film and, you know, nonfiction books. But But yeah, I'll be curious to see where it goes. You're a Quentin fan, I assume, right?
Myself?
Yeah.
Well, there's two incidences that I'm such a huge fan. One, he had funded a re-release of Stairway to Heaven, which was a World War II a Guy Meets Joe kind of a afterlife pilot. You know, it's a really cool like black and white film, but he had been a part of a foundation that had put on a premiere to raise money for film restoration and stuff. And I think I crashed it. Don't ask how. Just go to the Santa Monica airport and walk into the party. So I see Uma Thurman. I knew Uma, and she goes, "We want to meet Quentin." Great. We're talking to Quentin, and we had gotten cigars, Davidoff cigars, and he's like, "I want to go smoke some cigar." And they gave us wood matches for it, but you can't smoke anywhere. Like we're in a big airplane hangar, and so I'm like, "I'll go smoke a cigar with you." So me and Quentin go out to the front, doors of the whole thing, and there's a couple of stand-up ashtrays and the marquee. And so we're smoking our cigars and chatting. And I look up and I notice that his name on the marquee is obviously a paste over job. It's like, a piece of canvas put over. And it says so-and-so, Quentin Tarantino and so presents Stairway to Heaven. I go, I wonder whose name you're covering up. And he goes, me too. I go, so we move one of the tall ashtrays over, like, those tall ones. And I hold it while Quentin stands on it and climbs up. And he climbs up and he lifts it off. And it says Martin Scorsese.
Oh.
He puts it back down and he goes, "Yeah, I'm dead." He was like, Quentin Tarantino was dead because he's like, my name was now over Martin Scorsese's. So that moment, and then in Inglourious Bastards at the theater, they talk about the kid, and I think that means he knows who Jackie Coogan is. Yeah. He knows the story. If he's familiar with the kid and knowing his knowledge of film. So I need to have another conversation with him since I've seen Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
And maybe try to get into that last movie.
I would love to see that.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
For sure. Let's talk about a little film called Adventures in Babysitting, shall we? Directorial debut of Christopher Columbus, if I remember correctly, right?
Absolutely. He had really legit credits as the writer of Goonies, Gremlins, and Young Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
So he was a baby Spielberg. He had yet to do Home Alone with John Hughes, so he didn't have that kind of connection yet. But I think that he embodied that John Hughes vibe. I was posting about Adventures of Babysitting because it was the 39th anniversary a week ago, and somebody goes, "I just love all John Hughes films." And I'm like, hey, John Hughes had nothing to do with it, but we appreciate that because it's in Chicago. It rips off Ferris Bueller's by starting at the house, taking place all in one day, going to a bunch of things like a French restaurant. We have a musical dance scene, Twist and Shout, Babysitting Blues, and we beat the parents home just in time. I mean, it's very obviously very similar. So Adventures of Babysitting, we knew going in, it was Touchstone Pictures, Disney, and we're going to get the exact same budget as all the other Touchstone Pictures. You're going to get $8 to $10 million. That's it. That's their formula. It's basically Blumhouse's formula.
Yeah.
But Touchstone, by the way, Silver Screen Partners 3, which was the film financier for the Touchstone Pictures projects, is the single most successful film finance company in the world when it existed. It made 600% return on your money.
Wow.
Because they made $10 million that made $25 to $100 million at the box office, do 4 a year, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And so we were included in it, and it was healthy on, filming it was, big. It was 3 months, 2 months in Toronto, a month in Chicago, a week in LA. All the special effects were in camera. They used VistaVision or Intravision, which is front projection. And you are on kind of a little bit of a set, and it shows up in dailies the next day. No matte lines, no blue screen, none of that. You could even pan and tilt the camera in the shot. We had, made great friends with Anthony Rapp. Still see Maya Bruton at autograph signings, and we had a screening at the Egyptian Theater of Adventures of Babysitting, and I saw Maya again a couple years ago. Elizabeth Shue's in New York, but married to one of my favorite filmmakers, Guggenheim. who had done It Might Get Loud and Waiting for Superman, and one of the best documentary filmmakers in the world.
Yeah.
So she's busy. Plus, she's on 17 TV shows right now. And Calvin Levels, who was a Malibu resident. So Joe Gipp, you know, I wound up hanging out with after Adventures of Babysitting. And when it released, here's when I knew it was bigger than I kind of thought.
Yeah.
On the weekend it released, we got the LA Times, and they'll have a little entertainment section. And really, they'll only do color for like the Sunday edition and really big budget movies. And we open it up, and there it is, the middle section, 2-page, full page. So you open the paper, and it's the entire thing with reviews and everything. They print every single theater in Showtime in there. And there we are hanging off the building, and I went, oh, they're promoting the heck out of this. And the ads ran that. There was one ad. They didn't do multiple and different ads or teasers back then. They just had one solid, like, 2-minute ad. Which I have to say, Elizabeth Shue had a bit to do with crafting the trailer for Adventures of Babysitting. She worked with Jeffrey Katzenberg and the filmmakers and talked about kind of the marketing campaign. And there was a version, and I remember she gave some pretty strong notes, and it worked. It didn't scare away boys. It wasn't, oh, it's a girls movie. It looked, it's cool. It's fun. Okay, cool. It has that night gloss look. It was shot on a Panavision Platinum. Us and Interspace were the first movies to get the Panavision Platinums. And it had all, I call it rolling thunder, when a movie has all the trucks and cranes and shot makers and all that stuff that you need. And time and sets built and lots of shooting on location and night shooting. Night shooting is really expensive and tiresome. So the movie comes out and it does great. And then they expand the theaters and it makes more money the next weekend. And it's in theaters for at least 12 weeks. I mean, it was great. It had legs, had a great video release, and then hit cable and just played on cable forever. And then Blu-ray, and now it just 2 weeks ago had its premiere on Disney Plus. It is the TV-13 rating, so we've looped over a couple of lines, but no scenes are cut. It's the same running time, but just don't fool with the babysitter. And Thor's a weirdo, a complete weirdo. Other than that, it's the same movie. And I'm usually the biggest one against something like that. But if that's what it took to get the film exposed to another generation and for parents to go, ooh, I'm going to wait till a little older to show Adventures of Babysitting because of the language. It has some like 7 of the deadly bad words, you could say. Mm-hmm. But now with the kind of edited for TV version on Disney Plus, it's safe. It still got scary, got nude guys with guns at the bus station, but whatever.
I always appreciated how dark it was for a kind of kids movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Them entering out into the world like that. How long did it take when you guys did the blues club scene where you guys was singing? How long did that take to shoot? Because I know music can complicate things. Typically,
you on location you shoot Monday through Saturday, and you take a day off Sunday. On location, you could do 6-day work weeks. But in this case, we were called in on Sunday to do record the song, and they'd had a temp version that they kind of played for us. I think it was Michael Kamen's score, and we get to the studio, and Albert and the Icebreakers are wrapping up recording the little blues that they were playing when we rush onto the stage, and they like banged it out in 2 takes. It was done. And then they moved on to the Babysitting Blues. And it was written right in front of us. You see him writing all the licks. And they recorded like a basic thing of the guys. They're separated. And I wish I remember because I'm kind of more appreciative of it now. Yeah. We did this in Chicago. And it was supposedly some legendary blues recording studio. Decca record. I don't know what record thingy it was. But supposedly it was legendary. And they put a temporary mix together. And on set the next day at Fitzgerald's, which was the pool hall in Color of Money that Paul Newman gave Tom Cruise the Balabushka. That's the same set for the Babysitting Blues. We just removed the pool tables. It took 2 days to shoot, so Monday and Tuesday, and they had 3 cameras, one in the back on a dolly track, just kind of slowly going back and forth. And then, you know, crowd shots and around, and we did it. And Monica Devereaux, which was Chris Columbus's wife, you know, as soon as we reached Devereaux Street, you and your girls here are dead meat. Well, Monica choreographed the opening song, and then He Kissed Me with Elizabeth at the top of it. She plays the runaway prostitute when we run on the river, when we see the runaway, that's Monica. And then she also choreographed our like baby dancing in the back. Yeah. We shot that in 2 days. So it was overall, it took 3 days. They shot 13,000 feet of film. Most films released are, you know, 10, 11 reels. They're about 11,500 feet of film. So we shot enough to put together a whole feature, and it cuts down to that 3.5-minute segment. And they even added 8 more bars, because at the end of the song ends, but we're kind of, you know, high-fiving as we're running out. So they just looped a little bit of the end. And if you listen really closely, you can hear the bars that are kind of repeated as we're running out the door. And then the bad guys are stopped, and nobody leaves this place without singing this blues.
I believe that the first live action appearance of Thor was in that film, even before the Incredible Hulk TV movie that they made with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's Vincent D'Onofrio, fresh off the set of, 6 months after he wrapped Full Metal Jacket.
Really? Did you get any good Kubrick stories by any chance?
Yeah. Oh, I was all over him. I was like, tell me, what is that? He said, really, like 100 takes? What? And he goes, well, he's not in the room with you. I said, what? He goes, yeah, Kubrick's in another room on a monitor. He doesn't even, you'll get like walkie-talkie things. I'm like, really? He goes, an exaggeration about the takes. I'm like, oh, he goes, if an actor doesn't know their lines, we're going to do 30 takes until they know their lines. I'm like, okay, good point. He said it was great. He said it was, you know, and it's everything you want when you're like this talented theater actor and like a serious studier of method acting. And he's putting the same amount of commitment to playing Thor disguised as a garage mechanic, Dawson, as he did as Gomer Pyle. And so I appreciated that. He never broke character, really. He always was grim and rough and just would never smile. And he made Maya, I know that Maya would do the close-ups, and he'd look at her in the eye, and she'd just kind of like crack up because it's so intense. But she went right there. She cried, really cried, and it works. I just love it. I see one mistake though. Somebody hit a flag, and there's a shot of the 3 of us sitting there looking at Thor, and you see a shadow on us that kind of shakes, and I'm like, somebody kicked a flag. But that had a Doberman sequence when we first walked into Dawson's garage. In the script, on the day we showed up, we expected the first part of the day to be the Doberman sequence, where we walk in and immediately you hear rah, 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 and chains, and these 3 Dobermans come at us and just get stopped by the collars. Out! And then we have to like find a way around them. Maybe Daryl had some snacks. I don't know how we got around them. And then we get to where Thor comes down. And we get to the day and we go, where are the dogs? And Chris Columbus goes, yeah, we're not doing that. And it was negative 80-degree wind chill in Chicago when we shot it. We shot some of the exterior on Lower Wacker Drive, but Dawson's garage was just a regular, you know, single-story garage structure out in the middle of Chicago. And they said the wind chill was negative 80 degrees that day. Whoa. I'm like, that's not possible. But my eyelashes froze leaving makeup trailer, walking 30 feet into the interior where we were shooting, and my eyelashes froze. So it was dang cold.
Yikes.
Damn. Yeah, Adventures in Babysitting is by far one of my favorite movies of my youth. I still watch it to this day. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I mean, everyone in that movie, from, you know, the stars to the, you know, supporting characters. I mean, it was a beautiful little bit of cinema right there. I just loved it. Love that movie so much.
A lot of people love that. Yeah, you know, my mother and aunts all love it. You know, we bonded over that when it was just me and my mom and my aunts living in the house. You know, that was one of their flicks. You know what I mean? You know, beloved film.
Oh yeah.
You know, that also was produced by the late great Deborah Hill. You know what I mean? Who You know,
Deborah Hill and Linda Oak partnered for, I think, 3 films. Fisher King was one of the other ones of them.
Mm.
classic,
Deborah Hill had access to Halloween. So we've
Yes.
got a bit of Halloween on the TV behind us.
Yep.
Although she couldn't use the sync sound rights. So she has 2 clips of Halloween and she swapped the sound on them so that one sound clip is playing over the wrong visual. And that's how she got around the visual sync license.
Oh,
And then she
like
goes, I own the film,
Nice.
so I can do it. But I don't own the audio synced with the video and then projected, because that's a distributor that owns it. But she owns the master of the picture and she owns the master of the sound. She just can't put them together. So we got to put a little bit of John Carpenter's soundtrack and the soundtrack and the visual of Halloween. And I didn't know how much, you know, that Deborah Hill was the hand at the beginning of Halloween, the point of view in the mask.
Yeah,
When the hand comes up and stabs, that's Deborah Hill's hand.
yeah, she co-wrote it. She like wrote all the dialogue for the babysitters and stuff like that. She plays a crucial part in that franchise, and it's so sad that she's not around anymore, because she would be getting gigantic praise right now for it. You know what I mean? So it's sad.
She still is getting gigantic praise for it. I love that everybody's familiar with Deborah. Her father is in Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, really?
He plays the toll booth operator at the L train when we jump on the train, and he goes, "Who's gonna pay for those kids? Somebody better pay for those kids." That's Deborah Hill's dad.
I love
That's
it.
a good one.
Linda Opes had produced Interstellar.
Yes.
Linda is in the French restaurant scene as an extra at a foreground table dining, and as soon as the kick happens, you can see her go like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But they were amazing. Nobody even batted an eyelid, because it was very male kind of dominated in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And here we have this young director. And Chris was kind of upset because he failed to beat Orson Welles' record of directing a movie at like 24 or 20.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was like a year or 2 off. I'm like, Chris, relax. Okay.
Yeah.
Still like the youngest mainstream big budget movie director in modern history.
Yeah.
Wonder Kid. Absolutely Wonder Kid.
Yeah, for sure. I know you compared, people had comparisons to the John Hughes films, because I mean, at that time, anything teen or kid comedy of quality was being, you know, attached right to John Hughes. Did you ever get a chance to meet John Hughes? I mean, he's a king of the 80s, I feel, writer-wise, king.
I auditioned for 16 Candles and for Farmer Ted, the geek. I never got a chance to meet John Hughes.
That's cool audition. That's a huge film. Yeah, John Hughes, man, gone way before his time too. Rest in peace.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those things, man. It's unfortunate. Cousins, you did Cousins, of course, with Joel Schumacher. We love Joel Schumacher.
Love Cousins.
You got any stories about the Cousins, the making of Cousins?
Cousins was shot in Vancouver, and there's a note on IMDb that it was part of the. It inspired other filmmakers to use Vancouver as a film location, because we used Horseshoe Bay and Stanley Park and the downtown area and just like shot the heck out of it. And to this day, I see sets. There's this particular like country club set where we had one of the weddings, and it's been showing up on stuff recently on Netflix series. So I'm like, oh, that's that club that we used in Cousins. And you had this cast. It was an ensemble cast where every single person could have been the lead. You had Norma Aleandro, who had just been in Gabby, A Love Story, Oscar nominated. You had Sean Young, William Peterson from Manhunter and To Live and Die in LA, a man's man. Ted Danson. You had Isabella Rossellini. By the way, David Lynch visited the set of Cousins.
Oh,
Nice.
How'd that go?
I died that day. And then the great late Lloyd Bridges, capping off this amazing cast. And Joel Schumacher, one of the most versatile, he can direct any genre. And he was like, I'm going to do romantic comedy. No one's going to die of cancer in this one. Are you promise? Dying young. I'm looking at you. He goes, no one's going to die of cancer. Okay, cool. And you know, it's funny. We have 3 weddings and a funeral in Cousins.
That title was taken.
Hallmark movies. There's the house that George Coe dies at. George Coe, which was originally in the first season of Saturday Night Live. You remember him?
Yeah.
He dies. I think he played one of the dads or whatever. So he has a heart attack. But at that house, that funeral house, is this house in Vancouver that, you know, it's beautiful, and it's got this huge green yard that looks out onto a lake, and they're like walkies with boats in the back, like sailing boats out of the lake. I mean, just obscenely beautiful location. And I see that keep popping up on Hallmark movies. I'm like, oh, it's the cousin's house. Joel Schumacher directed. He didn't use a monitor, and he didn't really look in camera. He trusted Ralph Bode, who shot Bring on the Night, the Sting concert film of like Dream of the Blue Turtles era. And he was just a really like solid filmmaker, like Rick Waite, who was the director of photography for Adventures of Babysitting. It's kind of like everyone just gave him a lot of respect and gave him the time they needed to get every shot looking exactly like he wanted. And so Joel would lay a furniture pad under the camera. So here's the camera, and Joel is laying down underneath the lens, laying down like this. With just a big smile on his face. Maybe eating snacks, you know, messages, whatever. He's just watching us. And, you know, we do a take, and he goes, oh, I love it. Do it again. Any notes? He goes, no, I'm just having fun. Do it again. I just want to see you guys do that again. He would never, he go, that's it. You know, print, moving on. So, you know, nowadays they make movies and it's always, all right, cut, let's go look at playback, and everybody comes off set and watches the dang thing. And the star is probably one of the producers, so they have a say. And he just had great instincts, and he wanted to really feel like you're spying on the family. Yeah. So they had a 600 millimeter lens they'd use, and they'd stick it 100 feet across the stage would be the camera on a dolly. They'd fly a wall so they could get more distance in the set, and then shoot with this 600 millimeter lens. And it feels like you're spying on the family from across the room. And he also would roll the B camera. Even if you're not in the shot, he'd have the B camera rolling and getting family and kids playing, grandma falling asleep. Yeah. That was the actress really falling asleep. And they go, quick, get a key light. All right, roll. And just us setting up the lights, she started to wake up, and that's what's on film. So you didn't know when you were being filmed or not, and you had to just play the whole scene. It kind of felt like we were shooting Heaven's Gate, because he would just play the whole thing from beginning to end from each kind of angle. Those wedding scenes were a bear, because we didn't just get generic extras. They cast the extras as families on each side. So one side is predominantly Italian-American, and one side is predominantly Polish-American. And they go, and when they introduce us, they don't have speaking lines, but they do, because we're improvising. So they go, these are your cousins. These are your second cousins. And this one, you got this one. And then I love that you see like a romance in one, and like a couple from across the families hooking up in the closet. In the second one, she's pregnant. And then in the third wedding, it's their wedding, and she's getting married while she's pregnant. So a lot of fun details in that, building the universe of like big families, and you kind of only see each other at these big, huge functions. It's tough to shoot big wedding scenes. Yeah, with a lot of people like that, that's definitely a big one. You know what I mean? And I had Mitchie, who was obviously inspired by Evan Richards in Down and Out in Beverly Hills. In the original French film Cousin Cousine, Mitchie was a girl obsessed with death. So Joel Schumacher changed it up by making Mitch a boy obsessed with sex. And sex and death are really the same thing. And Joel Schumacher styled me head to toe. All of Mitchie's outfits were styled by Joel Schumacher, who of course used to be a costume designer and a production designer. Yeah. And he designed my room too. My room has got, you know, my fridge has got all of my tapes and stuff in it. I felt he was like able to express himself through my character, you know, this like artist side of him. And very hands-on. I like that. I like the hands-on directors hearing about that more, you know what I mean? Getting into it. Oh yeah. And I love Kubrick to death, my favorite filmmaker of all time. But hearing the thing about him sitting in the other room is like, because he always. I just learned Dorian Harwood I just read the story. Did you know about this story on Full Metal Jacket?
Which one? About
Dorian Harwood, who got terribly sniped in front of everybody in the third act. Remember, they're watching him just get sniped over and over again.
Yeah.
The shoot had run long, and Dorian had gone to Kubrick and said, you know, the production said, we're going long. Let's just pick up your contracts and you'll get the same rate. We'll just keep paying you. And Dorian said, no, I want more. And Kubrick said, what? He goes, no, if we continue, I want more than what we were getting. Like, I got stuff to do back in New York. And he goes, great, I'll let you do it. And for 1 week, he shot Dorian getting killed. And he said, I shot him for every day that he was getting short on his contract. For every day, I put another squib in there. Every single, and he just kept, he's like, come on, enough is enough. And they're like, nah, this looks great. We're just going to keep shooting you getting shot for a week. I remember in Toy Soldiers, one of the terrorists had kind of upset the producers. And so they did double loads of the squibs and kind of extra ones. And so when he gets shot on screen, it's particularly violent. Yeah. They kind of did that as retribution. Don't mess with the producers, man.
Dude, Toy Soldiers, another great film. You know what I mean? Another kids film, like it's kids, but it's dark. You know what I mean? You know, terrorists overrun a school to get a judge's son. You know, and you guys are gonna save the day. Andrew Divoff, of course, magnificent from The Wishmaster, and other films.
Absolutely magnificent. Andrew is the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah,
we love him, and he has mentioned that playing Louis Cali was his favorite role.
It looks like a lot of fun. He looks like he definitely has a lot of fun with that character. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, he liked to be scary on set. I remember, he wasn't upset, but there's a scene where he's lecturing to everybody and he's telling us the rules that if you're missing or and if you touch the wires, they will explode. And the first time we did that and filmed it, nobody knew that he was going to shout. And he went, they will explode. And the kids, everyone jumped. They're just like, oh my God, keep an eye on this guy. He's going to go nuts. So when we did the second time, that surprise was gone.
Yeah.
But he committed to the same. So I saw that, like, you know, I'm sure he hoped that there's probably reasons why they couldn't use the first take. The sound spiked too much when he yelled or something. They're like, okay, now we know what you're going to do. So he brought little surprises like that. He brought I love when he goes, he's beating Sean Astin, and he's talking to Will. He's talking about, you know, respect your father. I respect your father, even if you don't respect your father. And he's beating Sean Astin. He goes, well, this is what, you know, happened to me as a kid when I kind of would jag off a little bit. I would get beat. Bam! And he starts beating Sean Astin. You kind of get like, it's not his fault he's a bad guy. He's just trying to free his dad from prison. No big deal.
Yeah. You and Sean Astin ever talk about the Addams Family days with that connection?
Yeah.
I mean, you both have those great connections to the Addams Family.
Yep. And so it was, you know, I've already known Sean. We'd had a production company. We'd done short films, and me and Sean and Gabe Jarrett from Real Genius. He played young Mitchie in Real Genius. We were friends, fast friends. Gabe and Sean went to Crossroads, but because of Addams Family, and my grandfather loved Patty Duke. He thought Patty Duke was just the greatest thing in the world. John and our family, we're all friends. So I'd known Sean since we were single digit age growing up. As a matter of fact, I had auditioned for Please Don't Beat Me, Mom, which was Anna's directorial, like, movie of the week. Patty Duke was directing this, and I was going to go up for the kid. And I'd already done Battered with Mike Farrell. So I was like, I'm good at, like, battered movies. And Sean got it. And he goes, well, my mom was directing. I was kind of a lock. And I'm like, okay, I get that. And, but he was very upset because I did an episode of Chips that his dad directed.
Oh.
He's like, I really wanted to get on that Chips movie. I'm like, shut up, Rudy.
I know. Classic Rudy.
And I did audition for Samwise Gamgee. I shot a screen test kneeling over the body of Frodo and getting the ring and crying in Old English accent. Didn't get it. But I had worked with Robert Shea, directed Book of Love. And so I was actually seriously, because New Line had done, you know, gotten that loan to do the 3 movies. So I get this breakdown, and it's got all the characters, Aragon, all these characters, and they're like, shoots for 6 months or 9 or a year in New Zealand. And I'm like, what? You're going to make 3 huge fantasy movies in 6 months? No, this is the most absurd. It felt like a Robert Halmy Sr. movie. Like, didn't Ted Danson do a Gulliver's Travels?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Robert Halmy Sr. and Robert Halmy Jr. were experts at making these vast, globe-trotting, huge cast movies because he knew all the payoffs and graphs for each and every little country that they would shoot in Europe. Basically, he was the master at getting deals around the globe, so he could make these huge spectacle movies. Anyway, it felt like something like that to me.
We have quite possibly maybe my favorite character that you've ever done from Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. You know what I mean? It's the greatest, dude. It doesn't get no better. You know what I mean? The Kenny character is fantastic. I love him. My favorites, quite possibly next to Cheech and Chong, my favorite stoners of all time.
Nice. I appreciate that. I mean, that's a really big bar.
Yeah.
Because I asked Kevin Smith if I could be in Reboot. He put me in Reboot.
Yes.
And he was really nice. He gave me some great, a shout out and the quote, and like Hemsworth saying dishes are done, man. I'm like, okay, yeah. Kevin Smith was awesome. Yeah. He was very good to Keith Coogan. Okay, where were we?
Stoner. Kenny the Stoner talk.
So we're at the premiere. And of course, Chong is in Reboot. And he's great in Reboot. He improvised I gave a $20 bill to a dog once. It didn't work out. He improvised that. So I'm sitting at the premiere, and I'm next to Donnell Rawlings, and I'm behind Chris Jericho, and I'm like, right behind me is Chong. And I'm like, oh, man, I mean, I used to live in Malibu down the street from Lou Adler, who produced Cheech and Chong. And I'm like, I know these guys. Cheech, was around all the time in Malibu, of the like crazy people in Malibu and stuff, the Gary Buseys and stuff like that. And I turn to him and I go, hey, Mr. Chong. And I knew Ray Dawn. I was friends with Ray Dawn. So I just turned to him. I just said, hi, I'm Keith Coogan. Great to see you and everything. I go, by the way, I also, because of you, that's a genre, but I also have like a stoner role. And he goes, that's great. Good for you. There was no, obviously he's not going to know who the hell I am or who Kenny was, but I had my chance. I just totally blew it.
It happens. We're trying to get him on the show.
I'm just like you. No, kid, you're not. But thank you. I appreciate that. He's totally, Spicoli meets Bill and Ted. As a matter of fact, Steve Herrick directed Bill and Ted and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. So we instantly had, now for Bill and Ted, they couldn't overtly say they were stoners.
Right.
They never showed a bong. You don't show them smoking. They don't talk about it. They act like it, but they act like surfer dude. Yeah. In the 80s, there was like really no difference between like a surfer dude or like a stoner dude. So Kenny is really a lot of that with a little Spicoli thrown in there. And here's the thing about Spicoli. Sean Penn is a very serious kind of method actor. He definitely loves to do his research. I've seen in interviews where he goes, I knew guys like Spicoli in Malibu because he grew up in Malibu. And, well, I live next door to a guy named Fro Gardenier. And Fro would take his shirts and wear them on his head like this. Fro, right? And he talks like that. He's like, yeah, man, so I need some brizz, some killer buds, and some waves, and I'm fine. So I believe I live next door to one of the inspirations for Spicoli. So here I am copying Sean Penn's copy of one of my neighbors growing up. And then throw in a little bit of, and I remember I was on set. I didn't know what troglodyte meant. And I'm doing my walk and I'm doing a thing. And Stephen Herrick goes, no, troglodyte. I'm like, I don't know what that means. You're caveman. I'm like, okay, got it. Oh, he's like, yeah, so I'm hungry. Eat. It was very fun to be selfish. No, man, I'm holding up at lizards. This is a crock. Yeah. Don't give a damn about anybody. And what I loved about Kenny is his redemptive arc. He gives up the weed. He finds a trade. He cleans himself up. He changes his name. He goes through an entire metamorphosis. and presumably he's going to get the girl and have a future. And that, believe it or not, and I've done Battered and Question of Love and these like movies of the week and after school specials that tackled censorship or McCarthyism or like really serious subjects.
Yeah.
But the number of people that have come up to me and said, hey, I was like a layabout and like totally just got Kenny. And like, so I went to culinary school and now I'm a 5-star chef at a resort in Miami. This isn't a singular time. I have been approached several times at conventions. I've gotten emails, letters from fans. Dozens of people actually did a Kenny and learned cooking, and now that's their trade. So I didn't think that Don't Tell Mom was going to be the movie that actually affected most people's lives as much as it
did. They go, don't tell my drug deal around him no more. I like that. That's cool. That's a positive thing. I mean, you know, that's great that you get those stories. The fans come up and tell you that. That's awesome because you're making a bigger impact than just entertainment at that point. You know what I mean? Which is the most important thing any of us can do is try and make someone's life for the better. You know what I mean? Up it a little bit. So that's awesome, man.
I think as well. I think Christina Applegate was a great example for young women. There's no glass ceiling. You can own a company. You can be creative. You can own it. At the end, she fesses up, and they're like, "That's okay." They praised me for hiring a teenager for market perspective.
Honestly,
there you can get it together and clean up the house and take care of the kids and like be a better mom than mom is. And so it was a, you know, what do they call it? A teen wish fulfillment fantasy, you know, movie.
Yeah.
And most of the movies at the time, parents left town, everything fell apart. Oh my, what a disaster. And oh, the parents are gone. And so the writers were very, very to the point. They go, actually, what if we did a movie where the parents leave town and the kids get their shit together?
Yeah, I never thought about how ahead of its time it is with that like single mother type aspect.
Oh, and she gets sexually harassed at work. Yeah. She gets ignored for being a woman. And she gets to kind of put them in their place. Look, Bruce, when I have those numbers done, I'll go ahead and you know, fetch you. They have them run up and fetch them. Yeah. I love that there's women supporting women. You got Rose. I'm right on top of that, Rose. Joanna Cassidy in, you know, arguably one of my favorite roles of Joanna Cassidy. And I mean, when you could choose between Blade Runner and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or, you know, and she says that she's most approached with people coming up and going, I'm right on top of that, Rose. Thousands of people have come up to her. She goes, it's the most she's talked about, the role that everybody loves is Rose Lindsay. Yeah. And it was a big risk. She's, you know, she really laughs like that, by the way. You know when Joanna Cassidy was on the set because you'd hear just snorting. And you're like, Joanna's here.
And she does.
And we were in hair and makeup together early because we both had wigs. So I had this like hand laced, you know, wig, and Rose Lindsay had wigs. So we'd get in hair and makeup early in the morning. Hey, how you doing, Joanna? What's up? Good morning. Hey, how you doing? Drinking our coffee or whatever. And then like a half an hour later, Christina would show up for her makeup.
That character is it's a great character because there are moments where like, I feel like her likable level goes up and down. Great performance, but I think there's almost parts where you're not supposed to like her as much as you do type deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't really trust her, I think, at parts. And she is that kind of threat of, is she going to get caught with thousands of dollars of petty cash missing? Would Rose Lindsay come down on her? And her cover was brilliant. Bodacious ice sculptures, DJ services, party lights. And it's like, saw the crap that me and Skull and Lizard and Hellhound had sitting in one of our garages. Yeah. But to be able to bill it back to GAW, that's genius. Yeah. Dishes are done, man. You know what I mean? Creole mushroom, boss lady. Dishes are done, man. I love when the babysitter dies just by looking at the pictures on your wall. That makes me laugh so hard. I agree. I think Kenny's room killed the babysitter for sure. Oh, absolutely. The teeth chattering with the naked. I never met her. And later we drop her off at the mortuary and she goes, you know, God, you know, she was so nice and everything. And I go, yeah, she was a great babysitter. I left the house before she even showed up and I never saw her alive.
So in essence, she was a great babysitter.
She was a great, exactly.
We left our money on our babysitter. We'll go get it from the old hag. Every line, every other line in that movie. I mean, literally, there are 5 absolutely quotable, priceless lines. What about donating blood? You have to be 18. What about dad? Dad doesn't care. I mean, there's just, and they drive by so fast, the dialogue. What if we hack off her head? You know, go get the tape measure thingy. Shut up, you're not my babysitter. That's right, the babysitter's dead. Now go get it.
Did you have any, did you get a chance to meet the young David Duchovny?
What's that?
A young David Duchovny?
See, this is so great because David, so for the first week of shooting Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, they were using a warehouse in the Valley, kind of in Glendale area, Burbank. And it was, they built the interior of the GAW offices, the lobby, the elevators, the reception desk, Rose Lindsay's office, Gus's office. You know, they basically built like a little one floor of and they had backdrops out the windows and stuff like that. And I'm on contract for the film. So it doesn't matter whether I work one day or every day, it's the same amount of money. So I said, hey, I know there's scenes. I noticed you're going to shoot the phone scene, a couple of phone scenes with Kenny where Swell is yelling at Kenny, you know, hey, we're almost out of short, whatever, you know, what do you want? And I said, I can come to the set and be off camera because I know how frustrating it is to read with it. Script supervisors are great, but they're always like, hey, we are out of shrimp. Can you get more? So like, and also as an actor, you want to protect your timing and protect your choices. And I want to be involved in that. I don't want someone else making a call. Oh, he went really big and yelled really fast here. And so she's reacting that way. And I go, no, I kind of want to be involved. So I said, I'll come down. And I set up a little honey wagon for me. And so it was cool. So I just came down and kind of hung out on set, watched a little bit. And then I did the off-camera parts. At lunch, we get an hour for lunch. And I grab and I go. And I'm on my way to my little, you know, honey wagon. And David comes up. And he goes, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm like, sure. He starts grilling me. He goes, how do you get a good agent? How do you get better parts? How do you prepare? How do you, whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, sure. So I sit on the steps of my trailer with David in front of me and I'm just eating. And I'm always like, try it. I'm not one of those that's like, Hollywood is closed, don't come. I'm like, no, who knows who could be discovered? Anybody could do this. I do believe anybody could act. So Dave's grilling me and I just told him, you know, the work it takes and what you look for in an agent and all this other stuff. And I remember reading like a half a year after that, I remember reading for Red Shoe Diaries. Yes. Obviously I'm wrong for it, completely wrong for it. And David gets it. And of course it's a huge hit and, you know, then X-Files and everything like that. And I've never run into David since then, but I want to know if he remembers the hour I gave him of career advice. And because I don't know if he followed it or went, actually, he's full of shit. I'm not going to follow anything he said and then became a success. Or did he go, oh, and I had that conversation with one other young actress in our Malibu community. There was like this house party and my mom's into real estate and stuff. So she's like, oh, we're going to go over there and talk to the neighbors and stuff. So we're there and hanging out. And someone said, oh, I have a little niece that's in town. She's, you know, maybe from New York or something. And she's interested in being an actress. Would you talk to her? I talked to her for a while. I'm like, yeah, you do this and an agent. Do as much as you can, theater and this and learning, you get headshots and like explain the whole thing. And it was Denise Huxtable.
Oh.
What's her name? Angel Heart.
Yeah. Is it Tori? No. She's married to
Lenny Kravitz.
Aquaman now. I think she's married to Aquaman now.
Right. Yeah.
I forget her. Is it Tony? I could, yeah. But yeah.
No, anyway, but yeah. I've given that same speech I gave to David to other. I can't remember her name now.
Is it Regina something?
No. Cosby Show, the oldest daughter.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Oh God. After Angel Heart, she basically got blacklisted by Hollywood.
I heard Mr. Cosby didn't like her doing Angel Heart because it was so like dark from the Cosby Show. I think that's what.
Epiphany? You mean a man having sex with his own daughter in a satanic sex ritual while blood drips from the ceiling? Cosby wasn't down for that? Interesting.
He couldn't admit it yet. He wasn't able to admit it yet. But yeah, I also, speaking of horrors, I wanted my favorite, one of my favorite, probably maybe my favorite Tales from the Crypt episode ever. House of Horrors. I love that episode. You know what
yes. I mean? So great. We had Bob Gale Jr. directing, and I actually had him sign a copy of 1941. I had a graphic novelization of 1940. I'm like, sign it. Yeah. Huge fan. He's incredibly subversive. I'm going to do it my way and screw everybody else. And he's just, he's sick. It's fun. He's a good sick, but he knows how to get that in there. Yeah. We were shooting an episode. There was a thing in Culver City, a warehouse that they used for stages. And we were there for either costume fittings or something. So most of the cast was like Brian Krause, Courtney Gaines, Will Wheaton, DeLuise, London, one of the London brothers, Meredith Salinger. Amazing cast. And Kevin Dillon.
Yep.
And we get there, and Billy Zane is in a full cape around craft service, and he's doing like all these moves with his cape. He was shooting his episode the week before us, so we were on, and they had the same mansion set that they used for the Crypt Keeper's mansion or whatever.
Yeah,
they had redressed it for Billy Zane's episode, and then they were going to redress it for our episode. It was this standing set that could kind of be anything, and then off to the side of the set was the crypt and the Crypt Keeper and the puppet and everything. That was awesome.
That is cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I love it. They it's like a college. You're meeting up with some girls in this haunted house type.
By the way, do you know what the haunted house is famous for?
Was that the Psycho House or no? Or Changling House or something?
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble.
On the poster.
Oh, with
Nothing But Trouble.
Dan Aykroyd's Nothing But Trouble?
Yep, it was built for it, and it stayed standing. It's right near Magic Mountain in Los Angeles, which is about 40 miles north of LA. And that set was deteriorated, and we had to crawl up in the catwalks behind it, and you could see through it. So we had to do it at night. I mean, it was going to be at night, but during the day, you could see all the cracks in the facade because it was such a rundown set. But that whole front area where the car graveyard and Nothing But Trouble was and all that, that has been used in Critters, maybe Critters 2. That little house in Critters was, I think, Scott Grimes' house. And in Critters, but in Us, it was the frat house where we had us cleaning the floors with our toothbrushes and our underwear. There's a lot of scenes of me and Will Wheaton in our underwear, and I don't know how that happened.
I think that junkyard was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 as well. I think we had somebody on the show once that told us that. Courtney Gaines is a friend of the show. We did a movie with him years ago.
I love Courtney. He's absolutely great. Really sweet guy. He just handles it all so well. You shit on my house. He's fantastic.
Yeah, The Burbs, classic. The Burbs. Another gentleman. Oh, Corey Feldman and The Burbs. You guys are cool, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my first jobs was being a hand model on a Mattel commercial, and it was Corey's commercial. But while he's off at school or taking a break, they would have me do the close-ups, playing with this like model train or something like that. Maybe Fisher Price or something.
Yeah.
And then we did The Kid with the Broken Halo together, which was a Gary Coleman, Bob Guillaume movie of the week. Yeah. And then we did the Oscars together. We also were the voice of The Fox and the Hound. I co-starred in Tale of Two Corys, and also took part in his documentary. So I love Corey. Totally support him. We went and saw the first show. My wife saw the first show of his tour and the last show of his tour here in LA. It's interesting for me because I always waffle between nobody knows who the fuck I am or people going, no, you're Keith Coogan. I'm like, that means something to some people, but to others. Yeah. So for Corey, I think that there's a lot more people that know who Corey is. You just look up the numbers and the followers and the search results, and you're like, well, he's obviously been in much higher profile films and also had some controversy in his career and life. And great biography. If you get a chance to read Choreography, you'll read it in one sitting, because once you start, you go, oh, you will not be able to put it down. And I congratulated him on his candor. I'm like, I can't believe you talked about all this stuff. So if anyone thinks that Corey still has something, he's like, I don't know, read his book, and then you'll get a very clear picture. I just love him. I love him dearly.
We love Corey too. You know, people say weird things, but we love Corey, man. We grew up with him. You did Life 101 with Corey Haim, the late great, rest in peace. You came real close with him. What was it like, running with that crowd in that time? You know what I mean? That was like the crowd to be with.
Well, I wasn't hot enough to run with the crowd.
Walk with the crowd then.
I'd be at the place already.
He sauntered with the crowd.
Fashionably late, and it would be like, the Coreys are here, the Coreys are here. But I had definitely direct competition with Christian Slater and River Phoenix. I was going up for a lot. Like I went up for True Romance. I went up for Mosquito Coast. And so I wanted to be on that kind of serious actor thing. But then I realized my jam is comedy and silly comedies and being the funny guy and stealing the picture. I was like, I'd rather make a living doing that. So I had Jake Busey and Gabe Jarrett were two of my best friends growing up.
Yep.
And it's not a big deal. Your dad has an Oscar nomination. I'm not going to really worry about my Knight Rider episode. It doesn't affect my relationship. Gabe's dad is Jeremy Joe Kronsberg. So Gabe Jarrett, the little kid from Real Genius, his dad is Jeremy Joe Kronsberg, who wrote Every Which Way But Loose and directed Going Ape, the godfather of ape movies, of orangutan movies. I'm asking you, Gabe has a cameo at the beginning of Going Ape. He's a little boy at funeral at the very beginning. So nobody gave a crap. Your neighbors are Catherine Bach, Burgess Meredith, Larry Hagman. There's no we had one of the writers from not necessarily the news that lived on our street. That I was more blown away by that. I'm like, he writes for not necessarily the news. We had the first AD from The Sting, Jack Kehoe. I just was I lived next door to Nick McLean, who was the cameraman on Close Encounters and Spaceballs. And so that is something you just talk about, like, how's it going? How's the family? Did you see the game? Because industry to industry, that's just the rule. You just don't talk about the industry.
That's cool, because me and Alex over here, we started this show mainly because, like, we're Massachusetts kids and we're not like in one of the big cities doing it, so it's not like we can ever bump into somebody cool like yourself at a coffee shop and get like a conversation going. This is our way of being. We should have called this show The Coffee Shop. This is our way of, like, being able to talk to the people that we love and respect in the field. But I can understand them not wanting to talk shop when you're just grilling or taking out the trash. You know what I mean? Everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, nobody gives a damn when you can see Cher at the supermarket.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. You got any cool stories with Corey Haim about making Life 101?
Yeah, he's I had always been in all his career. I had auditioned for Lucas, and I thought he was phenomenally talented. I think he was, between him and River Phoenix, maybe Heath Ledger, probably one of the most talented in the industry.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, Corey and myself, even Scott Grimes, we're inoculated. We have family in the business. We have family that has a healthy relationship with the business. Like, it's just the business. That's a part of your life. It's not your whole life. So, yeah, I'm sorry. Where were we?
Good stories about Mr. Haim.
Oh, Haim. I'd always tried to get in his circle, and just a rumor that he's going to be at Ed DeBet or at Johnny Rockets. And I had made friends with the Zappas, so I was friends with Ahmet and Lala, their cousin Lala Sloatman, and you'd see Dweezil and Moon Unit and Diva and Gail, and occasionally Frank would crawl up, and I got to play Frank Zappa's piano. But that group included a lot of really cool people like Adam Horowitz and like Keith Moon's daughter, and like cool people that they didn't give any fucks.
Yeah.
They didn't care about career or money. I'm like, well, you have money, so you really don't care about money. But they didn't they just did their art, and they're like, I
Yeah.
don't care, I want a reaction. And I'm like, I'm always in fear of like losing a career with Disney. So I'm like,
Yeah.
always kind of want to be mainstream with so it was interesting hanging out with like true artists. It just did not give. So anyway, Lala was dating Corey Haim for a while. And so just a rumor that she's going to go have lunch, you know, or meeting Corey. I'm like, I'm going to go. And I'd be at this end of the counter, and Corey'd be at the very end with sunglasses and a trench coat. I'm like, he's so cool. So I get Life 101, and I'm like, and I was second choice. First choice was the other brother on Blossom.
Not Joey.
Right.
Okay.
And he had a choice between doing Life 101 or writing for Conan O'Brien. He took the Conan O'Brien job. So they tore his picture off the wall, put my picture on the wall, and I got it. The cast director was like, you were always my first choice. I'm like, why wasn't I cast for it? Anyway,
Exactly.
get it, we go. First day, it goes just downhill. We get on the plane, and Corey orders some rum and cokes and pulls out a Valium, breaks it, and goes, well, you know, and I'm like, I can't now. Maybe flying, I'm a little anxious. So I take a quarter, nip, like a flake off of it. I'm like, fine, drink it with a drink. So I wake up in Maryland, just pass out on the plane. We get picked up, and I'm like, he'd had like 3. We started shooting, and there's a heat wave in Maryland. Seniors are dying up and down the coast. They have like a daily count on the TV. 130 seniors now dead. So it's just, it's sweltering. It's humid. I'm not used to Maryland at all. We're shooting in Bowie, Maryland, and Anne Arundel. And Amy Dolans, who's also, Amy was in, one of her first jobs was Silver Spoons episode that I was in with her. And my aunt taught Mickey how to play drums for monkeys because Mickey only played guitar. And they said, we have a guitar. Can you do drums? She's left-handed. So she taught Mickey how to play on her left-handed set. Anyway, so long stories. Anyway, there's always, everybody in Hollywood kind of does know everybody, or someone was married to somebody's ex-husband, wife, whatever. Yeah. So Haim, Amy Dolan, Louis Mandalore. Great freaking cast. And we're shooting a kind of 60s period piece kind of thing. So I got the bell bottoms, and I got to rock my Rolling Stone tattoo. Technically, Sticky Fingers came out like a year or 2 later, but they said that they'd seen proof of the Sticky Fingers concept art before that. So technically we could put it in the movie. This is the tattoo I got just before Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's really faded Rolling Stones lips. The red seems to fade the most. And we finished the shoot, and Corey has no place to live. So he moves in with me in Santa Monica. And he stays with me, I want to say 2 or 3 months on my couch. And he's like having a hamster. I mean, now it's been demystified. Now we're dealing with somebody who's incredibly shy, very talented, very, not neurotic, but very aware of like everybody. He's very empathetic, and he's just very aware of everybody. And he's probably one of the best I've ever seen with fans. When a fan would come up to him, he would just shut everything out and give them complete focus and really connect with them. So I really learned that from Corey. I didn't know, you know, I lost touch with him. I reconnected with him a few years later, and it was just like we, you know, hadn't seen each other in like 1 day. Yeah. And he, you know, he was living with his mom, and they were in Hollywood at the time. And they were doing good, you know. I'm sure he was fielding offers, and I know they were trying to get licensed to fly off the ground.
I remember.
And
that,
then I know he left town. He moved back to Toronto with his dad, and I was like, well, maybe that's good, you know. And now that's the thing. Haim wasn't inoculated. Feldman was, just by the fact that Feldman's dad played bass in a band and his sister was an actress. Boom, you're inoculated. There's kind of, you know, the family has a different relationship with the industry. Yeah. So I think if you are Brad Renfro or Corey Haim or River Phoenix, the fact that you're so raw and available emotionally might mean you don't have the scabby scars and scales to protect you from the industry part of it and the career part of it. the ups and downs, the intense love, and then the lack of that love.
Yeah.
You tie your ego into your value as an artist, and that's gonna destroy you psychologically. Inoculated, you go, I'll have a comeback. I'll keep working at it. All right, maybe I need to sit down for a few years. I actually had a manager go, 5 more years. I go, what? He goes, nah, you're on a timeout. What do you mean timeout? He goes, you get 3 studio pictures come out 1 year. You need to sit it out for a while. And I go, I didn't even think I was overexposed.
Yeah.
So I got some of the best of Corey times. I really did. We'd go along Sunset Boulevard, bar to bar to bar, picking up girls. He'd have a table waiting for him at every club.
Yeah.
They go, Mr. Haim, right this way. The tits table in the center with the looking over. It was the, wait, what was the character in Carlito's Way?
Sean Penn's character?
The
Seinfeld?
no, the other one, Benny Blanco from the Bronx.
Oh yeah, Benny Blanco.
Table man.
Yeah.
He rolled like Benny Blanco. But he would pick up any girl. They'd be with a date and he'd go, hey, you want to hang out and come here with me, and walk away with the girl. And the guy was standing, what am I supposed to do with that? So he was very, very.
Was there anybody that wanted to fight Mr. Haim? I'm
Nope.
sure.
No, how are you gonna get mad at that? He's so charming.
Well, he
literally
was.
could
Yeah.
talk a nun out of her panties. I mean, he's just absolutely charming. He can convince you to do anything because Haim would get fixated on something. He goes, no, this is what I want. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And he would just, but we have to do this first. He just figure out a way to kind of. I've never had someone who was so, I don't want to say manipulative,
Yeah.
but I've never had someone who was so effective at communicating their wants and needs and then going after them immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. He was something else. It was sad when I already passed, you know what I mean? Because I remember the License to Fly. I forgot all about that. So you just brought that up. They were trying to do a sequel to License to Drive, which would have been devastating. You know what I mean? I still think people still support those two enough that they probably could have crowdfunded something to get that movie done. I feel, you know what I mean? Rest in peace to Corey Haim, man.
Yeah.
Now you brought up Jay and Silent Bob's the reboot earlier. Yeah. We love Kevin Smith and Jay Muse. We went to go, me and Alex up here went to, he did like a road show type thing for the release.
Yeah, we went to the road show and they had the interview and it was a great experience. And seeing you there was a nice cameo, a little cherry on the top of a very great Sunday to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. How'd that come about? Kevin Smith is kind of like almost the John Hughes of this generation in a way, with his one of the greatest writers we have. How'd you guys come into contact?
My wife wanted to get Pops from Goldberg's, George Siegel's picture of George Siegel. He was getting a star on the Walk of Fame, and I had already seen Kevin. Well, I had one interaction with Kevin, and it was at Smod Castle in LA. He used to have a Smod Castle on Santa Monica Boulevard, little theater, and we have a little theater district, Theater Row, and I did an interview with Frog there, and then went to a screening of The Shark Is Still Working, the 3.5-hour great documentary. So afterwards, Kevin's in the lobby, and he's got a crowd around him 3 deep, just talking to him. And he's, and I'm across with my friend in the room, and I'm looking over at Kevin, and I'm like, and then my friend's like, go up and say hi. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to bother him. But I'm looking over, and I see this. Kevin looks up, and he looks at me, and he goes, and I lose my mind. I'm like, I just got a head nod. Kevin Smith, he looked at me, and he went like that, and I was so happy. So while my wife's Kevin spoke at George Siegel's star ceremony, because he's heavily involved with directing Goldberg's episodes, and she couldn't get George Siegel. He took off. But Kevin came to the rope and was talking to people. And so she get up to Kevin. She goes, oh, my husband loves you. She, he even had a, moment where he saw you, whatever. And he goes, who's your husband? She goes, Keith Coogan. He was in Don't Tell. And he goes, I know exactly who Keith Coogan is. Yeah. He goes, oh. He goes, dishes are done, man. And he goes, yeah, I was watching movies longer before. I watched a lot of movies before I started making movies, is basically what he said. And he said anyone who was in a movie that I saw before I got into the industry, he sees as a different kind of like thing. He's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, that's that. And so she goes, well, part of his speech at the star ceremony was, universe isn't a mind reader. You got to ask for what you want. And she goes, he's going to be at Fat Man and Beyond. And they're going to, or no, what's the one with Mark Bernardine? Babylon. Hollywood Babylon with no, with Mark, with Garmin. So with Ralph Garman, they're going to be at and Ralph Garman is the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah.
They're going to be at the Comedy Store, and they're doing their podcast. So we go there, and I had signed a dish. Dishes are done, man, to Kevin, and I'd written a 3-page scene of me and God, who was it? Qualls, trying to buy weed from Jay and Silent Bob in front of they're stranded in LA in front of the Chinese theater in Hollywood. But they're only selling medicinal now.
Yeah.
And so JD Qualls doesn't have a 215 card, and Bob is signing people in. They're like, no, it's medicinal weed. And I have Bob hitting a vape because he's given up smoking. And Jay knocks it out of his hand, and he's like, what are you going to be drinking kale smoothies next, you pussy? So Kevin, I'm sure, never read the scene or anything, but he said, when I asked him, I go, here's the plate, here's the thing, nice to meet you finally and everything. And I said, hey, I heard you're doing Reboot. I go, I want to be in it. And without missing a beat, Kevin goes, you're in. I'm like, I've been in Hollywood a long time, and I've had a lot of people make promises. And until you're on a mark on the set, actually until your second paycheck clears, you don't have the job. So, but he announces it. He does the podcast and he goes, hey, Ralph's going to be in it. Keith Coogan's in it. I come up on stage and I give like dish towels to Ralph and him. And he gets to the whole thing. He goes, it's been a weird week because it was the Harvey Weinstein scandal just broke. And his first 4 films are tied with Miramax. That night, he said he is donating all of his residuals from those movies to women in film. He goes, the fastest way to fix the industry, get more women involved in the industry. So I'm going to get more women involved in the industry. And so I had to stay on top of it. It's in production. It's going. Oh, he's got a script done. Oh, cool. My wife's like, maybe we should try to reconnect with him about now. Like, they're going into production. So we're going to go see him at the Alex Theater. It's the night he has his heart attack.
Oh.
We're going to see the 9 o'clock show. So we're actually in our seats. And they're like, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin's in the hospital. And we're like, oh my God. So some time goes by. I'm working at Sony Studios, and I see calves, jorts, and open, exposed calves on a movie lot, stepping outside of a soundstage door and then back in real quick. And I go, are those jorts? So I walk over to the thingy, and it's Kevin. He's directing Goldberg's. Hey, how you doing? Glad you're alive. What's up? And I'd already asked my agent. I said, hey, I'm going to be in Reboot. She goes, yeah, you are. And I go, no, he said I could be in it. She goes, well, have his production company call me and we'll contract and do the whole thing. I go, fool. And so have your people call my people. So I go to Kevin. I go, hey, I don't know how to make it happen. Like, really? Like, I don't know what number. And he just grabs my phone, puts his number in it, gives it back to me, and goes, keep in touch. So another month or two by, and I hit him up on the day that contracts were going out, and Liz gave me the contract, and he goes, we don't have any money, so you got to work as a local hire in New Orleans. And I'm like, I'm gonna be at an autograph convention in Pensacola. It's 200 miles away. I'll drive over, and it all worked out. I think I missed Ben by a day.
Yeah,
that was the second to last day of shooting. And I filmed my bit, and it's with Diedrich Bader and Jay and Kevin. And I finished it, and I'm just, I'm nervous, and I'm like, this would be a great opportunity. And we cut, we get over, and he's so great about introducing people. And when they roll, he'll go rolling. And let's hear it for Keith Coogan, everybody. Yeah, and the whole crowd goes nuts. And he goes, action. So you're going into a take with all this energy. I've never seen a director do that. So when he raps, he just doesn't go picture rap on Keith Coogan. He goes, picture rap, thanks for coming out, da-da-da. I was blown away. So I get to him in this like kind of huddle because they're like breaking down the set. They're going to go shoot something else. And I look at him in the middle of it and I go, just please don't cut me out. Just, it just hurts so bad to be cut out. Not only did I not get cut out, but he name drops me, does the quote, and then has Chris Hemsworth say, "Dishes are done, man." I'm over the moon.
Yeah.
And then sitting around at my job at Sony and get a text from Kevin, "Movie's done. Want to see it?" My wife works at Disney. I call her and I go, "Hey, Kevin when can we go over?" Okay, so we arrange next night. We go over there and he goes, "This is the first time I'm showing it to anybody." So me and Pinky were the first people basically to see it.
That's awesome.
And he goes, "I want your notes." What? Yeah, what do you think? What do you think? Now, there's two different levels of notes. There's, "Oh, it was great," or there's, "You got to trim this in the second act, you got to move that," and think, "Hey, was there a beat missing there? Da-da-da-da-da. What's that running gag? Is that working? Is that not?" And he's right on it with me because I know every reference of where he's pulling it from, and he knows every reference. So we're kind of like dialing that in. And there was no green screen comp. It was a temp music score. It was 4.5 minutes too long. So he's got to cut 4.5 minutes, and he's already cut out the KKK scene. I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, we had a KKK scene." And I go, "You mean like Busting Loose?" He said, "Yeah, like Busting Loose." He goes, "It's an homage to Busting Loose." He goes, "Every road picture has to have a scene with the KKK." And I'm like, "Well, you're absolutely right. Why isn't it in the movie?" He goes, "Running time." And I go, no, you need that in there. So I'm really glad he got, and if you watch it, that sequence is like 2 minutes from the beginning of the construction site, seeing the girls tied up, to them, Jay throwing the joint in the thing, getting the porta potty and spreading shit all over the KKK guys. That sequence is the tightest, quickest sequence, but you needed it. And then, and then we talked about Hal Ashby, and we talked about being there and the end and Hooper and Smokey and the Bandit. And he's like, "Well, I'm going to do running bloopers over the credits." And we're like, "Yes, absolutely." He managed to find a way to stick moments he had to kind of excise from the movie and either mess with pacing or didn't really gel. He was able to put all those in the credits, so everything's in there. And it is one of his best movies. Honestly, we were watching Mallrats the other day, and we're like, where's the heart? Where's the thing? That stuff with Jay and Harley Quinn, the father-daughter stuff, knowing the real story, knowing where Kevin is in his life, his relationship with his daughter, her coming out as being this terrific actress. Yeah. She's going to have a huge career. And to see Jay metamorphosis into another, I don't know if you saw Madness to the Method or Method to Madness.
His movie, I haven't caught it yet, but I do plan on seeing it.
You got to watch it. Yeah. You got to watch it. It's great. There's a great scene where within the first 10 minutes where Jay goes over to Kevin's house.
Yeah.
And they shoot it in Kevin's house. And there's a point in the scene where you go, are they playing characters? Are they talking to themselves as Jay and Silent Bob? Are they talking to themselves as Kevin and Jay? Is this like an honest moment on film? And the rest of it is, of course, and it's really funny. I mean, you have to watch Bandit. Yes, it was cheaply made. Yes, it's low budget, but there's plenty of funny low budget movies.
Of course.
It does work, and it's so correct on casting directors want to see you a certain way. Jay is in there reading for this like detective thing, and they go, "Oh no, you're gonna go up for the silly best friend," and he goes, "No, but I've already prepared for, like, I thought I was gonna be the lead." They're like, "Shh, you're not gonna be the lead." And so it's really interesting. There's a lot of truth in it. It's not just a silly picture. And there's amazing cameos. So it's on, and then you also, if you've seen Magnum Opus, the making of Reboot.
No. Is it on the Blu-ray?
Yep. It's on Amazon Prime free.
I own the Blu-ray.
I don't know if it might be on the Blu-ray. You know what? It might be on the Blu-ray.
I hope so.
You might be right. I think it is on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
One of the most beautifully shot behind the scenes I've ever seen. There's no manufactured conflict. It is literally just episodic of each week. And there was the ones they released on YouTube, which are great, but it's one of the best shots making ofs. The director of that directed a feature just a few months ago in pandemic under coronavirus testing.
Oof.
And it co-stars Ralph Garman, Keith Coogan, David Koechner, Harley Quinn Smith. So I got another gig off of Reboot
Yeah.
playing this officious newscaster guy. And
Nice.
Brian O'Halloran's in it.
Hell yeah. Brian O'Halloran's a friend of
And
the
I
show.
just did an episode in a series called On Our Own, co-starring Brian O'Halloran. So I'm now a part of the Viewist universe.
I like that.
Nice.
Yeah, Kevin Smith is one of the best writers. He did like Chasing Amy. I think is one of the best written films of all time.
Yeah.
And they've always been life movies, but yeah, like they're the newer batch of movies, if you will. There's like more. It's like a different type of life where it's like a more realistic life. Like you take into Clerks 2, which I think Clerks 2 is one of his best movies of all time. I like it more than the original. I love the original, but the friendship elements, the Clerks 2 are fucking incredible. You know what I mean? The way
If you weren't in love with Rosario Dawson before, you will fall in love with her in Clerks too.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin has that ability to say raunchy stuff in one moment and like completely heartfelt stuff in the next moment and make it work. You know what I mean? Beautiful.
Pussy Troll,
Exactly.
Interspecies Erotica.
Yeah.
Clerks 2 is a classic,
Love it, dude. Love Clerks.
degenerate film. I love it.
The soundtrack's great. Everything about that film's great. It's like, I think in the overall, like, when they go back and look at his career, I think Clerks 2, I might even think it might be his best film because there's so much to it, substance-wise, of emotion and just, they're dealing with life changes, but then it's that catch-up. It's like anybody who's ever had like a close friend, which we all have, and like as you grow up, you start to split, and how they were going to get married and leave it, and there's that confrontation where you're losing your friend. They're going into a different place where they're going to be happy, but you're still losing your friend. You know what I mean?
At the beginning of Clerks 2, I'm like, this is the last time they're going to ride into work together.
Yeah.
On the second time I watched it, I paid close attention to the dialogue in that scene.
Yeah.
It's really well written. There's a lot of that in Mallrats. You have, hey, we're about to get in the car and move across the country. You have it in Clerks 2. I feel like that must have been a moment in Kevin's life where he's dramatized that.
I think Clerks 2, I know that Jay was kind of in a rough shape before Clerks 2, so it very well could have been him looking at losing his best friend, not to a wife, but to the substance thing,
True.
Yeah.
Chasing Amy, I was told that, because Kevin didn't used to smoke weed.
Yeah.
But I was told that the movie is true, but instead of a girl, it's weed.
Interesting.
And that it's true of Joey Lawrence Adams' relationship with Kevin, but they've swapped weed for I don't know. There was some biographical reason. She goes, you know what that movie's about? It's funny. I was talking to her at an autograph convention years ago, and I didn't know at the time that I would be in Reboot with her in the future. I was like, I will crawl into your movie universe one of these days.
Yeah. It's funny. I think there's a lot of weird love songs and all types of weird things that really reference drugs instead of the other person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all those 50s love songs, the 60s love songs where they're really singing their heart out. I think they're really singing about drugs.
I ruin every song for my wife because I know that every song is about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so I'll go, hold you in my arms. And I'm like, that's heroin. Whatever term in the movie, I'll go, oh, that's another term for this. Or,
Yeah.
Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey. I'm like, monkey on your back.
Monkey
It was
on
a
your
heroin addict. And she goes, thanks for ruining another song for me.
It's all about what it means to her, tell her. That's the
Yeah.
key. You know what I mean?
It's
what was the
how
song,
it touches you.
Day, makeup, today,
Third Eye Blind.
I want something else
To
to
get me through this.
semi-charm kind of like that is about snorting ecstasy. No, what
Really?
is that about? It's about a drug. I think it's doing crystal because he says I bumped again and I bumped again, took a hit that I was given and I bumped again and I'm like, this song is a drug song through beginning to end. Once you start listening to music, every song is a drug song.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, Keith, we had you for a gigantic amount of time here. We usually ask one question at the end. You know, me and Alex over here make films ourselves. We have a lot of people that make films and artists. Yes.
One question.
Yeah, one last question.
Okay.
Because so many artists, we always ask our cool guests like you, we say, you know, what advice would you have for an artist out there? You know, there's so many ups and downs within the business and stuff. Do you have any advice to help people kind of get through ups and downs like that?
Yeah. I have two pieces of advice. One for those just starting out as a filmmaker, and one for those that have decided this is it and they're kind of in it. As for the latter, if you're in it, and like you said, it's cyclical. Remember that. It's a wheel. That wheel turns, and you're going to have your up times and you're going to have your down times. And that's exactly the terminology my grandfather used. He says, you know, Hollywood, your success can be very cyclical. And he'd had a comeback, biggest child star at 5 years old, and then, you know, come back at 50. I am 1 year older than my grandfather when he played Uncle Fester. But he's, you know, and America loves a comeback. We always love a second chapter. We love those kinds of stories. So my advice on the latter half about it being cyclical is you could fail, you could succeed. You can't guarantee success, but I can guarantee failure. Quit. See, that's really my advice. I can't guarantee you're going to be a success again, but I can guarantee that you won't. Stop doing it. So, and there's people, most people in the industry, you couldn't pull them away from it. It is oxygen. Now, as far as getting into it and starting out as a filmmaker or a writer or actor, I heard this great advice. Don't touch the fish. When you become a master sushi chef, there is an apprentice and a master situation, and you learn your craft. And it's 5 years before you make rice. 2 years of learning how to wring a washcloth correctly. Too many filmmakers rush in and they go for the fish. They start cutting sushi. Well, you got to learn the basics first. So don't write a time travel epic short film. Make it two characters in a room talking. Can you record dialogue cleanly and edit and make a project, make it 1 minute long? Don't bite off more than you can chew. So as you're developing and everything, it takes a while. 5 years in, then they start to get in there and learn about making sushi. So when you start out, don't touch the fish. Keep it as basic, as simple as you can, and you'll have kind of more successes than obstacles and failures.
I like that. That's good advice.
That's really good.
Shit. I'm speechless now. Now I'm speechless. I'm captivated.
Well, look at Clerks. Clerks is a perfect example. A modest setting, one room, you know, shoot on black and white. You don't have to worry about color temperatures or the cost of developing it. Sounds okay. Sounds pretty. It's very dialogue driven movie, and just feels like one mic in the room recording it, but it's fine. It works for that.
Yeah.
I know they spent like $100,000 afterwards to get the sound mix and the music rights added onto it.
Yeah.
But and write what you know. I know a lot of people go, well, I'm a writer. I make the character an architect, make him a, you know, a novel writer or something. They're always doing something slightly off of the creative process.
Yeah.
How many people want to watch a movie about filmmaking? Although we have great movies like And God Spoke and State in Maine and Stuntman, and there's a lot of great movies about making movies. Sweet Charity. Or no, Sweet Liberty. Sweet Liberty.
I love In God Spoke. I haven't heard that name in a long time. That's a classic.
God Spoke is you know, it's along those lines of Spinal Tap. I think it was before Spinal Tap had become commoditized as this thing, that In God Spoke was the closest to that kind of feeling of improvisational and just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's close to, there's an Aaron Sorkin play called Hidden in This Picture. And it's about a mad director that goes down to South America to film a World War I period war picture. And the whole play is just him trying to get this one shot with the horizon and the tanks. And at one point, cows walk into the picture. And he's like, there weren't cows in this region. So there's a page of him going, cows, get those cows out of the shot. And so I always think of that when I think of period pieces and difficult filming and cows. Sorry, that went on a tangent.
I like it. Well,
yeah, write what you know. Write what you know. If you're a filmmaker, then fine. I think there are great, like Living in Oblivion is the best movie about making lower budgeted movies.
Living in Oblivion? I've never seen that. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, Living in Oblivion is Steve Buscemi.
Oh.
And it's also one of the first screen appearances of Peter Dinklage.
Really?
Yeah.
Alex's
Yes.
favorite, yeah.
And Peter Dinklage, there's a dream sequence. And Buscemi is this obsessed, black hat director wearing kind of guy, such an artist.
Yeah.
And Catherine Keener's in it. She's fantastic. They have a whole thing where somebody has the headsets on, but they can overhear what the director is saying to each actor. And he goes to the one guy who's supposed to be Brad Pitt. He goes, yeah, it's all her fault. She's, and then he goes to her and she goes, it's all him. So she overhears him saying it to him. But there's a dream sequence, and in it, it's like this blue clouded room, and he's supposed to be standing in the room, and Peter Dinklage in this like blue suit walks around him and then holds up an apple. And they bring Peter Dinklage on set, and he goes, why does it have to be a dwarf? I go, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, what? Is it just, it's weird. It's a dream. So, let's cast a dwarf so it'll be weird. And he bitterly does the take in it. And it's, and they have the scene of Catherine Keener where they're shooting a crying scene where they're slowly dollying in. And it's a scene between her and her mom talking about molestation, and the father knew or the mother knew, like, you knew and you didn't do anything, and she's crying. And they're pushing in, and you're in with it. Whenever they're looking through the camera in the movie, it's color, but then outside it's black and white. But if they're shooting black and white in the movie, then it's color behind this. So you always know when you're looking through the camera and when you're not. Yeah. So you're pushing in, and all of a sudden you'd see the boom mic come in. And it was the most, first they go, let's just rehearse. And she crushes it. Catherine Keener cries, and the whole crew is like, we should have been filming that. They go to film it, and the boom mic comes in. They go to film it, somebody's cell phone goes off. They go to film it, a camera has a problem. And you feel the frustration of like making a movie. It's so great. And then like the biggest success, the boom guy winds up handing a script to somebody, and he becomes a producer at the end. It's so great.
Life imitating art. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Keith, it was an absolute pleasure having you on this show, dude. We appreciate your time. Great stories. This might be our best episode to date, Alex.
I have to agree with you on that. I mean, just everything you talked about, the insights, your experiences. It was a real honor to just, listen about all these things that you've experienced, the people you worked with. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the great questions and covering some B cuts. I do appreciate covering some of the deeper cuts, like Cousins.
Like the deep cuts, yeah.
Yeah, I don't get to talk about Cousins a lot, so I appreciate that. And man, thanks, guys. Yeah, take care, be safe, and
you too, man. We'll be in touch. Ever want to come back on the show? Would always love to have you. You know what I mean? We'll be supporting from afar. You're gonna be the next Kevin Smith movie, I heard. Clerks 3. You know what I mean?
Huh? Am I? I don't know.
You're gonna be the third clerk.
I was gonna give it a pause. Let him do Mallrats, and then I'll hit him up the next movie.
All right, fair enough.
But I know half of the cast of these movies, like I know Shannon and London. So I feel like I could just call them and go, "Are you on set? Yeah. Where are you guys filming? Okay." And I'll go down and I'll just walk in the background of a shot and be like, "Oh God, yeah." Kevin will be like, "Oh, that fucker."
It's awesome. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. Tell Pinky we said hello. You got
Pinky, they say hello, hi.
Hey, you guys have a great afternoon, great Sunday over there. And I'll talk to you soon, Keith.
Yeah. All right, man. Rock on. And nobody leaves this place without singing the blues.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
dishes are done, man. I have to say that. I'm contractually obligated to say that.
That's true. And we thank you for doing it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. With
Thanks,
that being
take
said,
care.
we'll catch everybody on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST.
And for autograph dishes, visit KeithCooganOnline.com. Talk to you later.
Hell yeah. KeithCoogan.com. Check it out. Support Keith. Support the show. Support yourselves. Everybody be happy. We'll talk to y'all later.
Fuck on. See you guys.
Later. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.